Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if post-war Naruto was in My Hero Academia. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Shadow Knight Destroyer and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. Fateful Meeting. In the city of Musutafu, nighttime. You must never let your guard down while on duty, grrr, or else it could mean the end of you, rough. That was the word spoken by the hunting dog hero. Hound dog who led the way on a busy snowy street of civilians for one particular bunny or more so hero in training. Unlike him wearing his normal hero uniform, the other wore a warmer hero outfit that had leggings with other attachments while light snow fell from above, with said hero having a smile glued to her face. Filled with nothing but confidence. Yeah. A smile was stuck on her face. As heroes, we gotta always be prepared for the worst. Besides, her smile grew as her right fist was caught by her left hand. Any villains that dare to start something will instantly regret it. The hero merely nods at her words, agreeing to them while his intern was giving small waves to the kids that had passed by her with their parents. Name. Rumi Isagiyama. Hero name. Rabbit hero. Mirko age. 16 student. UA high school. Rough. That's what I want to hear. With a nod he leads the way, both still on patrol. As a hero in an instant, Mirko had frozen in place just as Hound Dog did. Unlike everyone walking as if everything was normal, the two had been on the receiving end of an aura that their animal senses were being overcome by, a feeling of dread and utter despair that caused the dog hero to fall to his knees as his animal instincts were screaming at him as much as they were at Mirko, yet unlike the dog. The rabbit, on the other hand, mustered up a shaky smile. Whatever is causing my rabbit survival instincts to go crazy, instantly she hopped to it. Must be a very dangerous villain. Jumping from her spot and away from the hero training her, towards an alleyway she entered, jumping on the walls to increase the speed where she flew out from it, where she found the side of a car having hit a telephone pole that luckily didn't fall. Standing next to the vehicle was a man who had a torn-off door next to him, and he was reaching inside the vehicle. Villain. She was already launching herself straight for the figure who was helping an elderly man get out, his back turned towards her while she was raising her right leg, shocking the few who saw this as she closed in, but at that moment the person had instantly turned, taking in his face, blonde spiky hair, whisker makes, red eyes, and nothing as her consciousness fades. In the instant she made eye contact with the person, he had brushed off her kick, as if swatting a fly quickly, that made it look like she had missed before having her face collide with a stop sign, causing many to flinch as they soon enough watch her slide down now unconscious as she hit the ground. The blonde man staring at the bunny in confusion just like the old civilian. The hell is going on today? He muttered while letting go of the man who was now out of his vehicle, visibly shaking at the fact he almost hit someone, yet the man seemed unaffected as he placed the girl against the car, confused why she attacked. Mirko. The shout came from the alleyway as the two men turned to see the hound hero running out on all fours, turning to see the side of her unconscious next to the two staring at her and runs up to them, now high alert as he saw the man which the blonde spoke. Do you mind telling me why she suddenly attacked me? This question confused the hero, yet his eyes narrow as he knows he was the source of that malice, yet also at the fact he knew who exactly the man was, watching as he turned to the driver. Since a hero is here, I'll leave you to tell him what happened. After saying that, he turns to look at the hero who was visibly shaken as he raises his right hand that was completely bandaged and lets it rest on his shoulder. As a hero, keep a better eye on your student. That was all that was said as he removes his hands and starts walking away with his hands going in his pockets while the hero, who if he could have been sweating at this point, and turns to look at Mirko who was unconscious, sighing to himself. It's good seeing you again, Tucci. The blonde-haired man said while he sat at a ramen restaurant, only having enough room to fit 7 people with there being no food but the flaps. Compared to the blonde who looked as if he were in his late 20s, the owner was in his 60s. It has, Naruto. A bowl and chopsticks were set in front of him. It's been almost a year since you last came, how have things been on Nabu Island? The man picks up his chopsticks and stuck them in his noodles. Peaceful as usual, just how I like it. With that, he stuck the noodles in his mouth and began to slurp them until he was stopped by an explosion taking place behind him, surprising the two as Naruto just turns to be met with the sight of one pissed off bunny high schooler. Found you, you blonde bastard. She shouted while pointing at the man who was sweat dropping in disbelief while the owner just looks at the ramen eater. What did you do? Nothing, but watched her face plant into a stop sign. Immediately the girl jumped straight at the blonde while swinging her right leg, aiming to deliver a roundhouse kick to knock him out, as well as payback, yet in an instant the man had moved by using his left arm to easily block the kick, causing her eyes to widen as his expression remained passive as he moved his arm to grab her leg and raise it, forcing to balance on her other leg. You think that'll stop me? She does a spin and swung her other leg at his face, yet he didn't move an inch to respond before or after the kick made contact, causing her to just stare in disbelief as her kick just merely pressed into his neck while he just stared at her. "Done?" was all he said as he lets go of her leg, and in an instant he moves, having gotten behind her without her even realizing it before a single chop caused her to fall, yet was caught by Naruto, who simply sighs as he walks over to Tucci, placing her down on the chair. "Call UA and let them know you found their student." After saying that, he turns his back to the owner. "I'm guessing the only way we can have a nice chat is if I took my vacation on Nabu Island, right?" A smirk was gained from the blonde. "I am the one in charge of keeping all the animals safe, as you know, with them having quirks they are always trying to be poached and sold." He turns around and waves. "But yeah, come visit the island anytime and we can have a nice chat." And not so fast. This caused Naruto's eyes to widen a little and turns to see the girl was awake, a little shaky yet standing ready as a clear smile was visible on her face. "Don't even to think about walking off." She was silenced at the man suddenly getting in front of her with unmatched speed, causing her eyes to widen as she looks up to meet his gaze before he kneels a little to be about her eye level. "Gotta say, you surprised me. Didn't expect you would be up so soon." This caused her to blink in confusion while Naruto smiles and stands up straight to look down at her. "So what's your name?" It took her a few seconds to register everything that's happened and show him a confident smile while pointing at him. "I'm the rabbit hero, Mirko." Her right first slams into her left palm. "And I'm the gal that's gonna teach you who do not mess with." Hearing such a thing, a small chuckle escapes his lips, surprising the girl and making her feel embarrassed, yet that turns to confusion as he turns around. "Let's meet again, perhaps one day." And without another word, he was gone by a puff of smoke. 14 years later, at the docks of Nabu Island. "Okay, everyone assembled as you've instructed," shouted Tenya, who had saluted to a single teacher standing before the entirety of Class 1 who were selected for a special project that they weren't exactly informed about, more so still trying to figure out what exactly they came out here, except for the single fact that standing before them was the single pro hero who took up the job, yet made it more questionable as it was none other than Mirko, the rabbit hero who stood with her fists on her hips. At this point, Momo finally spoke up while raising her hand to gain the rabbit hero's attention. We still haven't been told why we all came out here." Her question merely got a confident smile while she extended her right arm towards the island, showing much greenery, buildings near the dock, and ships all around them along the beach. "First, how much do you know about this island?" Her question surprised the group as they looked at each other until Koji suddenly raised a hand, gaining her attention. "Ah, Koda, I believe." Her question was followed by a nervous nod as he spoke up. "This is Nabu Island." The few students who didn't know the name were surprised as they too realized it. Known to be an isolated and peaceful small island, but also used to protect endangered animals born with Q quirks from being poached. A nod from the bunny hero was given while she turns to face the island. "Exactly, Class 1A." She points at them. "You guys will be staying here for a couple of weeks in place of the pros taking time off to see their families rather than the next shift. Your job will be to fill in their jobs, such as helping the civilians that live on the island and the animals dwelling on it as well. You won't be entirely by yourselves, as it was decided that since I am most familiar with the island, I would be acting as your teacher till you return to school." This got a reaction as many smiled and pumped their fists in the air in celebration of this. "Amazing. We get to do actual hero work. Yeah, let's go. This is gonna be great." Despite the celebrating, only a few didn't smile as they took this more seriously, which Mirko took note of Katsuki, Izuku, and Shoto, before turning around with the others turning to look at her back. "Despite me being in charge, I'm only gonna be here just in case something unexpected happens, so for now you all will rely on each other and figure out the problems." She took out her phone. "By now, you will all have the directions emailed to you, along with the jobs needed to be filled in." Now with all that said and done, she stops at seeing Ijiro raising his hand with a look of confusion upon his face as he started pointing at something. "Yeah, Spiky." Her smile instantly falters and twitches upon hearing a shout. "Mom." In an instant, Mirko turns in shock to find one bundle of joy running towards her. A child possessing tanned skin, red eyes that are tilted slightly inwards, spiky white hair that appears to have grown down past his neck. "And Nozomu, why are you here? You should be with your sister." And instantly she froze and slowly turns to see the entire class staring at her gap. "You're a mom?" Denki shouted in shock, much to her horror, but in the end, she sighs loudly and turns while placing the child down. "Yeah, I'm a mom, what's it to ya?" She gave a glare that caused them all to shut up, while Katsuki started to sweat as she reminded him of his mother, all watching as she was scratching her head with a troubled expression, but sighs again and turns to look at her son. "Nozomu, why did you come here by yourself?" She was slightly confused. "Where's your father at?" The child just stared at her before looking up with a finger on his chin. Dad's dealing with Arnold again. This caused her to faceap him in understanding. That damn cat again, huh? Come on, let's go see your papa. This caused him to brighten up as he takes his mother's hand and leads the way, which she turns to look at them all as they were still standing in the same spot. Do I have to kick you all or what? Follow me, you'll meet him by the end of the day either way, since he's the one in charge of operations involving endangered animals. This surprised the group, yet in the end they followed after her, letting her lead the way, and that being a house located next to a massive cage. Chapter 2. The Warning. Years ago in the start of summer. So, this is Nabu Island, spoke to a newcomer of Pro Hero Society walking off the deck of the boat she was standing on and onto the dock. Name: Rumi Isagiyama. Hero name: Rabbit Hero. Mirko affiliation: Pro Hero. Age: 19. Graduate: UA High School. The hero just takes in the sights of the beach, dock, buildings, forest, and the very noticeable massive cage in the forested area that she took note of as being where the animals that have issues controlling their quirks go until they master it or become too much of a danger to people around them. Grrrrrrrrr. A deep growl emanates from the small puppy-sized cage next to her, gaining an annoyed look from her as she glances at it and lifts it. It must be wearing off by now, I need to hurry in an instant. Mirko's ear twitched as she felt danger all of a sudden and turns fast to find something standing, towering over her, which she looks up to be greeted by an anthropomorphic cat-like monster with light-colored fur. He has horizontal stripes across his back and tail and 3 vertical stripes that cross his forehead to the back of his head. Who are you? This caused the cat's eyes to narrow, making Mirko more ready for combat as she smiles as she watches the cat monster tilt its head before eyes widen and pats its head, confusing Mirko before something flew over her head, and landing next to the cat was a tall bird that resembles a phoenix of sorts. It had big green eyes, red and gold feathers, and purple tail feathers. Atop its head was a sort of officer's hat, and in its mouth was another. Left this back at base, Nyan. The cat takes the hat. Boss keeps telling you not to do that, you remember what happened with the last transport, don't you? At this point, Nyan puts the hat on and shrugs. Seriously, Birdbrain, the cat and the bird begin to walk, passing by the unmoving Mirko. I was put in charge to watch any intruders, not my fault. My hat. He was stopped when the two heard a shout and turned to look at the annoyed Mirko, who glares at them, placing the cage down before pointing at them. Who the hell are you two? Her demand and the steel gaze she had caused the two to look at each other before back at her. Security. Bullshit. She punches her fist into her palm. You two don't give off any heroic vibe, that was malice I felt from ya. Her accusation caused the bird to look at the cat, who suddenly chuckles a little while scratching the back of his head sheepishly. Oops. This is why he reprimands you a lot, you make kids cry. Mirko just smiles until the three heard an explosion taking place with the ground shaking, and with that she felt it, turning slowly, she was met with the pieces of the cage having exploded to reveal a large beast that didn't even look like an animal, but a monster. It was entirely black with 6 eyes, each one ruby in color. Its mouth revealed large fangs, and its feet had 4 toes per paw. Its fur is very shaggy and roughed up. It had no tongue, ears, or nose. Bruere. As it growled in anger, Mirko's eyes narrow while turning to face the beast. Crap, it took all might to keep that thing in. She stops to see it opening its maw to reveal a light, which alerts Mirko, as she knew what that meant, and immediately goes to attack until she felt it, an all too familiar feeling that caused the bird and cat to freeze along with the beast, to stop all actions of attack as it slowly looked up, as if seeing the form of what was true horror, true malice. Mirko couldn't even move her body as she too was affected until it cut off, which she snaps out of it to see the beast had returned to its dog's size and hiding behind its paws. Well, this is a surprise. Mirko felt his body moving to turn before she realized it. Been a while, kid, though it's more appropriate to call you Hero, Rabbit Hero Mirko. The one to have said it was Naruto, standing there with the bird and cat, both making way for the man who was walking towards her. Blonde bastard. Flashback end inside at the HQ of the Endangered Species Quirk Animal Sanctuary. Whoa, what they stood in front of was a massive cage that was miles long in width, while also being quite high as well, and next to that was a large house separated into a living area and a vet hospital. This is where they keep the animals that have uncontrollable quirks that would cause problems, Mirko said while walking forwards. He's most likely inside. She was stopped as they all heard a loud crash inside the house. Damn it, Arnold, calm down, you need to take Y, stop multiplying. Meow. I'm not a scratching post. Meow. Fine. Wait, I forgot to buy catnip. I knew I should have checked to see if I had the yarn and catnip ready. They heard the shout, soon being overcome by the meows. The students began to sweat drop, while Mirko starts to sweat with her expression, turning to great annoyance with her son looking worried until they saw something at the top, and they began looking up to see a child around Nozomu's age staring at them, and in her arms is an all too familiar 6 eyes dog beast. The girl had tanned skin, red eyes, long eyelashes, and straight blonde hair reaching down past her waist. "Suki," Mirko called and watched as the girl instantly hit her head. "What have I told you about letting your younger brother go off on his own?" That question caused her to look up, appearing to put up a front. Nado do that. A response came while avoiding eye contact with her mom, who had a steel gaze. "And what did you do?" "Let him go on his own." The students didn't know what to make of this as they watched a hero sigh just before they all jolted, hearing a loud slam coming from the door, followed by many scratching sounds. The students began to get a bad feeling, more so Kauji, as the door flies open to unleash an army of cats meowing as they scampered out of the house, shocking many at the number, but more so the fact the cats didn't run away, but instead encircled the large group, avoiding Mirko and Nozomu to instead focus on the students. "Oh." Mina extended a hand out, which a cat happily jumps into her arms, snuggling into her. "They're adorable." She just smiles while Ichako, Kayaka, Momo, Sayu and Toru had the same thing happen to them as they held the cats climbing on them and getting into their arms. All adorable. Look at it was until they noticed the males. "Get these damn cats off me." Katsuki, like the rest of the guys, were being viciously attacked by the biting and clawing cats, more so Katsuki that seemed to be a magnet as most of the cats attacked him, even some jumping off the other students just to swarm the blonde to jump and claw on him. This gained smirks and a couple of chuckles, though they couldn't laugh much as they too were being assaulted by the nightmares, which Mirko sighs at, wondering when the one in charge will end this until something surprising happened. "Please stop and calm down." It was with that order from Kauji that caused Mirko's eyes to widen as she too heard it, with her bunny ears twitching, turning to look at the student before back to see all the cats had stopped what they were doing to look and stare at the student that had spoken to them. "Damn these cats," shouted Katsuki as he pulled them off of himself with some jumping off by choice. "I'm gonna turn them all to A." He was silenced as a ball of yarn collided with the back of his head, instantly caused all the cats to turn and charge towards it, but disperse as they combined into a single cat that tackles the ball. Meanwhile the student, covered in scratches, turns in anger at who threw that, but stops to see a blonde-haired man wearing a lab coat standing at the door. Found the yarn under the couch. He was stopped by Mirko suddenly launching herself at Naruto with her legs pulled back, yet he instantly turns to the right and dodged, which she lands on her feet, shocking all the students at what they just saw, with Katsuki left hanging with his anger. Why was Nozomu by himself? She plants a finger into the man's chest accusingly. "I sent you a clear message to watch our kids because we would be having stew." She was cut off by the lifting of a phone showing what she last sent, and it was within seeing distance of a few, causing both girls and boys to blush as the last thing that was sent was Mirko and a sexy bunny. Immediately the hero grabs the phone and chucks it into the open door with a deep blush. "My phone," the man said in a sad tone while the hero turns quickly, blushing with a glare. "Then no one saw what was on the P phone, right?" Her question immediately gained an awkward silence as the ones who saw the said picture was looking away with a blush on their faces, causing her to sigh in despair. "Ah, great, today can't possibly be any worse." Despite seeing this, Naruto smiles and even laughs a little, which wants the wrath of the hero, who glares at him while he held his hands up. "Don't you start to laugh. I may have forgotten to message you, but I'm pretty sure I told you last month." This starts to cause him to look guilty while she pokes his chest again. "Besides, with your hearing, you should have figured things out." This caused him to look away, completely guilty. "I was busy with the cat." "You could have just shown it who's boss." "And cause every animal in the cage to go whimpering, rather not have to calm every one of them down." As the two had their conversation, the students didn't know what to make of this until she felt a tug and turns to look down, meeting Nozomu's gaze before it, the students who were all strong at them. At this point, Tsuki had made her way downstairs and out the door to stand next to Naruto. This is my daughter." Tsuki motions to the girl standing next to Naruto, her gaze getting suspicious at Katsuki due to a certain news report. "And my husband, Naruto Uzumaki." At this point, the man raises a hand with a friendly smile. "Hey." At this point, Tenya immediately stands up straight and spoke. "I am Tenya Iida, I am the class president of class 1A. He didn't break his eye contact with Naruto. "If you have any questions about our class, I'll be happy." He was stopped by the man raising a hand in a stopping motion. "You don't have to. From what I have seen, you all will be helping out the residents of the island, with only a select few staying with me to tend with the animals." This surprised a few of them as he spoke and looks at Mirko, motioning her to bring the kids inside, which she did, chatting with the two siblings while doing so as she shuts the door behind her with Naruto staring at the door. "They're my pride and joy." When he suddenly said that, he surprised them. "If not for Mirko, I would have been quite the lonely guy not having a goal. There is but one rule while you stay on this island." At that point, he turns to display a serious expression that caught them off guard. "No matter what, none of you will ever speak of this." This confused yet worried them at the glare he was displaying. It is a silent agreement with the island that no one will tell another breathing soul off this island about my relationship with Mirko and our 2 kids. I work hard to keep my family safe and a secret to those that would aim for our kids to hurt Mirko. I tell you this for one reason. At this point, something drastically changed that further the dread in the air, shocking the students as they felt it and couldn't speak, yet none were as affected as Izuku, Tenya, Shadow, Momo, and Kirishima. Those 5 were frozen in place as they sweat with their eyes going completely wide, having been consumed with an all-so-familiar feeling they haven't felt since the Kamino incident. If villains come, it will be a massacre the likes of which haven't been seen since the war 100 years ago. As he spoke, Izuku was holding his breath as he wanted to vomit just how close it was. Shadow was visibly twitching as he's forced to relive that day once more. Kirishima felt his will slowly crumbling. Tenya felt his knees beginning to lose their strength. Momo was already on the verge of tears. Unlike the rest who were visibly shaken at his words, it was those 5 that were terrified, despite the malice being suppressed. It was the wall breaker during the microsecond a little was released to have the 5 forced to relive that day once again. Before they stood not a man but a monster comparable to All for One, the thought of him being more dangerous was just incomprehensible for them to comprehend. With that, Naruto turns as the atmosphere returns to normal. That is the one warning I will give you. Naruto turns around and picks up the shaking cat that didn't refuse his hands along with a yarn and heads for the door. Once I give Arnold his medication, I'll tell you who goes where. As he spoke, he made his way to the door and opens it, yet simply looks back, most notably at Izuku, who could only stare at those blood-red eyes that stared into his soul before it was broken by the door shutting. But the Katsuki was silenced as he and the rest watched as Izuku, Tenya, Shadow, Momo, and Kirishima dropped to their knees as they shook, shocking the rest who ran to the side to comfort them as they tried to understand what happened, believing it was a quirk, but to those 5, they knew the truth of what had stood before them. We must never anger him or he'll kill us all. Chapter 3. Years ago in the start of summer at the HQ of the Endangered Species Quirk Animal Sanctuary. So how have things been, Mirko? With a cup of ramen in one hand and a plate of a couple of carrots in the other, he sets them at a table. It's been a few years since we last met. He sits down in front of the annoyed pro who wore casual clothing. Not even answering, she takes the carrot and plops it in her mouth while still holding her steel gaze, causing a bead of sweat to fall from his face. Meanwhile, a few animals were simply moving around the house such as a cat, dog, rabbit, a few speeding mice, and a parrot that seems to be speaking slurs to another parrot. Is there a problem? He got his answer when she bit off the end of the carrot and abruptly pulled the larger half out of her mouth and points at him. You straight up left me in the middle of our fight. She was glaring daggers at the man who was slurping the ramen with chopsticks. First you caught my kick, then took my kick without dodging, and finally you tried to knock me out. I've been trying to find you for over a year for a rematch, but you were gone without a trace. The blonde at this point could see the glare she was delivering him at the stress he's caused her, yet Naruto stopped slurping after finishing his bowl and stared at her. Didn't you try assaulting Metwis? This time her eyes widen in surprise. I almost get hit by a car, and when I was trying to help the old man out you attack me, miss, and face smack right into a stop sign, which was funny by the way. He smiles at seeing her blush in embarrassment, standing up angrily as she was trying to think of a response, while the man used his arm as leverage. Either way, I did say let's meet again, perhaps one day. Mirko's eyes widen as he stood up. So how about we have a spar? The basement has a training room if you want to try it out later today. I've got some stuff to take care of here. This caused her eyes to widen before a smile forms on her face, filled with excitement as she points at him. You on Whiskers? She turns her back to him. 7.00 sharp. You better prepare yourself because I'm not gonna lose like last time. She quickly starts heading for the door after picking up her suitcase that had her hero suit in it. Plans? His question was met with a smile. I rather not damage my hero suit when I'm kicking your ass, gonna go to town and see if a store has something I can wear. After that was said she had exited out of the house by the front door that shuts behind her, leaving Naruto with the animals just before he recalled something. Did she just call me Whiskers? As he thought about the nickname, his eyes widened a little. Whiskers, it's the nickname I thought for you. His expression was reduced to one that was very bothered as he turns his face towards one of the photos on the wall, having a crack along with, but it showed a group in it wearing the same uniform of a camo shirt and jeans, appearing to be a military photo, along with the fact in it had him looking a little younger by a few years, sporting short red hair and blue eyes next to a woman with dark blue hair. Anada was the single thought he had before standing up just as he looks down to see a cat was hugging his leg, causing him to smile as he rubs its head. Been a while since I spared with another. Muttered the blonde who wore a black tank top that had an orange swirl located on the right side of his chest, followed by a pair of orange shorts. The room he stood in was a large basement with a high ceiling, within it was not risking weights or anything but space, along with the walls being layered with some kind of metal. It was at this time he heard footsteps from the stairs and turns as he saw a shadow descending towards the floor, which he merely smiles until his eyes widen. "Nice, room's big enough so it'll work." Spoke to a smiling roomie who was leaking into the room wearing a black sports bra with a purple edge, along with black fitness booty shorts also having a purple outline. A single look was all it took to tell she was physically fit as well, as Naruto seemed to shake his head, as if denying the thoughts that traveled through it while the hero stood in front of him. "You ready or what?" A fist slams into her palm. "Not gonna end like last time." When she spoke those words, the blonde just smiles at her confidence she was displaying to him. "We'll see," he enters a stance. "You can start." She immediately made her move. "Luna." Mirko launched herself right at Naruto, whose eyes shot wide at how fast she was, now in front of him with her right leg raised high. Bark. She brought it down just as Naruto took a step back and the heel of her foot barely touched his nose, missing her front-facing axe kick. She's improved and not playing around. At this point, he moves fast to get behind her, yet was met with a cartwheel kick in the air with her legs extended, slamming into his arms and moving them down. Gotcha. The moment her feet touched the ground she had launched herself close quarters, her speed shocking Naruto at how much she's improved as she swings her foot downwards while above him, driving Naruto down on the floor at the strength of her kick. "That all you got?" She sported a big smile, seeing that she was winning against the man she lost to 3 years ago, who was now laying on the floor in front of her, but at this point, her eyes widen as she felt it, and with it, he began to stand up with bones cracking. "You have gotten better though." At this point, his appearance took a change as his teeth became more loose canines, his hair getting spikier as it grew, and most notably a single tail was seen. "That was because I haven't been using my quirk." This got a bigger smile from the girl who prepared to fight until the two heard something and turn. "Oh look." Spoke to a parrot that was going into Mirko's bag and pulled out a phone. "Something to break." This surprised him as Mirko glares at the animal and heard a crack from the phone. "Hey, that's mine." She quickly runs for the bird that drops it on the floor and makes a break for it as it flew out through the doorway. "Damage Ak, why do?" Naruto was stopped mid-sentence at the bird's need to destroy things with his metal beak quirk for a single reason that caught him to stare. "Damn it." Rumi was standing in front of him bent over, grasping her phone to stare in dismay at her cracked screen. And just at that moment she was already turning to look at the blonde, only to be met with wide eyes and a blush. Despite it being a mere millisecond, she was almost positive Naruto was staring at her ass, as the blonde quickly turned away with his tail returning into his body and features retuning to normal. The sight of this caused her face to turn a little red, yet she does her best to push that aside and smug as she turns to Naruto and approaches the guy who was avoiding eye contact. "So, you like staring at young, pro hero's ass, huh?" She displayed a smile while elbowing the blonde who was already sweating. I was admiring your tail." Naruto was sweating more at what he said while Rumi's smile grew. "My tail, huh?" An idea sparked in her head. "That's located above my ass, huh?" She could see his inability to look at her, which she decides to turn to show him her butt. "If you like to admire my tail so much, want a feel of it, it's quite fluffy." At that point, his blush turned him into a tomato as he immediately turns away. Spar is over. He begins to walk towards the door of the stairs, but stops. "I'm gonna take a shower before I get your boat ride ready so you can return to the city." With that said, he disappears from view as he starts walking up the steps, leaving the hero by herself as she was left alone with her thoughts. Now that I think about it, must have been in his early 20s when we met. Her thoughts began to lead her down a new path. "It's been a 4-year gap between us, but I'm 19, she turns to look at the stairs as a blush sticks to her face as she felt embarrassed. "Now that I think about it, here's an opening for shifts for pro heroes who can take part in watching the island and the sanctuary as security." Flashback end inside at the HQ of the Endangered Species Quirk Animal Sanctuary. Plop. Sigh. Naruto sat at his desk, leaning back into it with a hand resting under his chin as he stared at the entire class 1 who was looking around the large room, while 5 specific students were very uncomfortable as they watched Naruto pick up a clipboard. "I only need a few of you to help with the animals, so the rest that I did not the state will follow Mirko to the hero building to begin your work." His gaze looks at the group as he looks back down. "Kauji Kuda and Katsuki Bakugo. You two will be staying here to help me out." In an instant that got a reaction as Kauji became surprised that he picked well just like Katsuki. Almost everyone wondered why he would choose Katsuki of all the students to help with animals. "Why me?" The hothead slams his hands on the table much to his classmates' shock. "Taking care of animals is not my thing, so leave me out of it." His eyes met Naruto's, and Izuku was already sweating at his childhood friend, with his gaze turning to Naruto, but they widen at seeing a clear smile upon his face. "Arnold seems to have taken a liking for you, so if something happens I can use you as a means to deal with the cat." This caused the others to think one single thought. He's just using his as a distraction. Katsuki grits his teeth and turns away while crossing his arms in great annoyance, while Kauji nods towards Naruto in understanding. I'll do my best. Despite being nervous at the man sitting before him, he still held courage. Sir. Naruto smiles in response at hearing that. Someone with your personality and quirk can help out a lot with troublemakers in the cage. I'll depend on you to help out with their issues. He opens his desk and pulls out a separate clipboard that he extends to the student. This is the list of animals that have issues and like to cause problems for civilians. I want you to ask them about their issues, and depending on what kind of issue it is, I would like you to write it down. The student nods as he takes it with Naruto turning to the rest of them. You all can go now, Mirko is waiting for you outside and please. This time he puts up a trite expression. Keep an eye on my kids, my son likes to explore, and my daughter how you would say sticks it to the man at this point. Tenya stands tall as he saluted Naruto. Yes sir. Despite what he felt before, he forced himself to make eye contact with Naruto. I'll make sure we of class 1 will do our best. While here they were cut off by hearing shouting in the room behind them. Arnold, my nemesis, we meet again. Mew. Naruto immediately facepalms while a scuffle was heard until a couple of loud crashes were heard, then silence as the door flew open to reveal a struggling Arnold gnawing on the hand of a much larger catman that held it. It was shocking to them, followed by another behind the being. This is Nyan and Phoenix. Naruto stood up and introduced the two inhuman animals. These two can be placed in the same category as your principal, but at a higher level. They are security for those who enter the island without permission. You all will be taking orders for them whenever one of the jobs around the island involves them. This has surprised the students who stare at the cat being simply given a wave. Nice to meet Naya. A hand was extended to Tenya. I look forward to working with upcoming heroes Naya. This immediately gained a few blushes from the girls. So cute, he says Naya at the end of his sentences. The boost hero in training simply takes his hand and shakes it. And I too as well sir. Tenya smiles at the humanoid cat whose eyes narrow a little as his smile increases as he suddenly pulls Tenya, much to his surprise, and the confusion of the other at the Nyan was now face to face much closer. By the way, how is little Nezu? This now confused Tenya, while Naruto's eyes narrow. I haven't seen him since I gave him a nice cut on his eye for disobeying the master's orders. He was cut off as Phoenix suddenly pecks him in the side, gaining his attention. What the hell was that for Phoenix? I was just Nyan stopped as he realized his mistake and turned slowly towards Naruto, while the others turned to see the man had a very annoyed expression. Nyan, what have I told you about asking that question? His eyes narrowed at the cat who appeared to be frightened. People aren't supposed to know about Nezu's past, you know what that means. Immediately the cat starts shaking his head in fear, while Arnold bit as hard as he could, and that got Nyan to let go, as Arnold dashed to hide behind one of the girls as they watched Nyan fall to his knees. Master, for the love of God, please don't consider that. He fell to deaf ears as Naruto showed a terrifying smile that unnerved the students. Nyan, you are ordered to take a bubble bath and Phoenix is in charge of it. And just like that, the cat was shaking his head, unlike Phoenix who was just enjoying this. I'll let just ox things. Oh, Phoenix was already pulling him by the tail with his beak and out the door, dragging the cat who was leaving claw marks on the floor. I don't like baths. Please forgive me. As his shouting continued, he was dragged out the door and out of the house, still screaming for the impending bubble bath of doom. At this point, all the students didn't comprehend what the hell they just saw with Naruto sitting down. If you work with Nyan, carry a spray bottle. As he spoke, the students tried to make sense, but the simple fact remains that their principal came from the sanctuary, and with it more questions on who Naruto exactly was, yet Katsuki just stares at him, his eyes narrowing as a single thought came to mind. Why does he look so familiar? Chapter 4. Years ago during winter time in Musutafu, Japan. Gucci stood there, dumbfounded a little as what can be seen obviously to almost anyone, except for the one standing before him. It was winter time with only some snowfall was happening, with snowflakes falling from the night sky with the sun having just set. Sorry Tucci. Spoke none other than Naruto, who stood in front of him wearing a winter jacket next to one Rumi, also wearing a jacket with earmuffs on her rabbit ears, yet the older man just blinks as he took in what he sees. I know you're closing and all, but mind making a couple bowls for us? I'll double. Though he was cut off by the man eagerly shaking his head. No need. He quickly turns while turning up the heat. I'll prepare your bowl right away. With that said, he runs in the back, which Naruto just blinks in surprise before raising an eyebrow, while Rumi just glanced at him. Whiskers, I know you said you'll buy food. Naruto just shakes his head, displaying a smile while looking at her. There was a lot of paperwork Nezu had for me with the recent activity of the animals being transferred. If not for you I would have stayed overnight to finish it, so this is my thanks. In response, she just looks away while fidgeting a little before seeing Naruto enter, which she did the same quickly, so both can't stay warm with the heater inside, despite it not being so cold outside. It didn't take them long to get their bowl, but a couple of minutes, and thanks to the heater and the hot bowl of ramen they got, the bunny hero felt quite warm, unlike the blonde who was unaffected by the cold, only wearing a winter jacket, otherwise he would draw attention. It was during the slurping of the ramen, Naruto finally witnessed Rumi's first time tasting this restaurant ramen, having only come here before in the past searching for Naruto and not bothering to buy a bowl. Well shit, muttered the white-haired hero upon slurping up her first few noodles. It's good. It was after saying this she realized something, glancing to her left she got a look of a smirking Naruto. Told you so, guess you lost the bet. Shut up, you're lucky I'm considering only doing half of the bet. Oh, so you're walking out half of the bet. Hey, you think giving those animals baths is easy? That damn pup of yours turned invisible just to avoid a bath. Of course, it's not that easy, it's not me doing it after all. It was with this conversation, Rumi was now glaring at the blonde who was smiling back, since the animals seemed to obey and not go against Naruto, unlike with Rumi they act out knowing they can. The laugh caught their attention to see Tucci. This may be the first time I've ever seen you bring someone else with you here. This caught them by surprise as Naruto just looks up and wonder if that were true, unlike Rumi who seems happy at hearing that, but she immediately stops upon seeing the old man smiling a little wider while staring at her, causing her to avoid his gaze with a blush appearing on her face. Now that I think about it, this caused the two to look at him questionably, more so from Naruto. If memory serves me right, wasn't there a police report a couple of years ago about a middle school student crashing several fight clubs in Hiroshima? This caused her eyes to bug out while Naruto glances at her with a raised eyebrow. I believe she was named the legendary schoolgirl hooligan, Bunny-eared Yusako. At this point, she was desperately trying to avoid Naruto's gaze, but knew for a fact he had a smart-ass smile on his face. Honey, I recall the same thing. Oh shut it. Rumi crosses her arms while looking away from the two towards her right. I wanted some action, and besides I stopped after doing that. At this her expression becomes solemn. I've caused enough problems for my parents when I did that, being taken into custody and having the name of my school being exposed. Got me not only me expelled, but also my dad fired from his job as a police officer. At this point, Naruto could see she was bothered and puts down the bowl, yet despite this the old man watched this before speaking up. So, changing the subject. The owner draws their attention once more. Shigatsu, New Year's is in a few days, how would you two be celebrating it? This seemed to snap Rumi out of it, but she didn't look at Naruto who spoke. Same as last year, working. Rumi's eyes widen as she looks at Naruto who saw her gaze. I help prepare the New Year's festival for the residents of the island, since they have family coming in, it gets pretty big every year, as we also have fireworks that are set off. After explaining that, he looks at Rumi. So, you spending it with your family? That question gained a surprising response as she looks down at her empty bowl. No, this took Naruto by surprise with Tucci just turns away. I'll be right back, need to get something. With that said he walks in the back with the door shutting behind him, yet immediately he ducks and presses his ear into the door, listening in. Wait, if you're not spending it with your family, then you'll be working. Then this got a shake of the head that pretty much confused the blonde who tilts his head before they widen, and he smiles. Wait, does that mean you got yourself a boy? He stops when he saw her eyes shot open, turning towards him fast as she spoke. No, it's not that, but I wanted to ask. She caught herself and grits her teeth before turning away, her face getting redder as she didn't know exactly how to speak as this was a first for her. Meanwhile, Naruto just stared at her in wonder, watching her take a deep breath and turns to Naruto with a blush still on her face. What would you say at this point? Naruto for a first witnessed a vulnerable look on her face. If I could spend New Year's with you? That single question entered Naruto's mind as he stared at her before slowly his eyes widened by the second, and with it, something starting making sense over the months they worked together, and at this point along with his eyes, his face started turning red as they stared at each other. Meanwhile, hearing this whole thing was a smiling Tucci who leaned against the door with a smile as he recalled when he was younger, a teenager in fact over 40 years ago when he met Naruto, who looked a little younger during the grand opening week of his restaurant. Despite being small, it was quite popular where they met the night during when it was almost closing. Flashback and inside at the HQ of the endangered species Quirk Animal Sanctuary. Get the hell off me. Screamed one angered Katsuki who was dealing with Arnold currently attacking him with the clones. I don't have the catnip so leave me alone. Meow. The army declared its war cry upon the blonde who had the cats jumping all over him while Koji was standing there trying to convince the cats to stop until the second ball of yarn came rolling by, gaining all the cats' attention once again before they charged towards it while dispersing for they combined into a single cat that tackles the ball again. leaving Katsuki covered in more scratches and bite marks as he glared at the animal that was playing with the ball of yarn. I'm going to kill Ak. He stopped at feeling something hard hit the back of his head and turns to see Naruto holding a clipboard. Found where I was hiding the balls of yarn. He motions towards the box in his other hand which he hands Katsuki. He'll be dealt with for a while until they unwind. More yarn and catnip is currently on backorder. His attention turns to Koji. So Kota, how you like it so far here? This caused him to blink in surprise before he looks around. They were in the cage that took the shape of a forest with multiple paths around them, intersecting with the trees all around. Due to the cage itself and the trees, it was quite shady where they were with sunlight peering in, along with the fact there were built-in lampposts along the paths. It was later in the afternoon with the sun beginning to near setting, along with the fact the lamps were on, and with it the ground was alit, displaying arrows towards the main exit. I love it. The student smiles brightly. I've never seen so many unique animals before possessing all kinds of quirks. His words got Naruto to smile in response to hearing that, scratching the back of his head sheepishly. Wasn't easy I tell ya. Naruto moves his gaze on Arnold continuing to roll with the yarn. Some of these guys are quite a handful like Arnold here. After saying that his gaze then rests on Katsuki who was walking away with a pissed off expression. Where are you? He was cut off by the student who turns with a glare focused on Naruto. Shut it, you whiskered bastard. He turns his entire body to point at the man in charge. I've wasted enough time here already and dealing with these stupid animals is a pain in the ass, I'm leaving. It was after saying that, Koji's eyes widen and turns towards Naruto, yet he just froze as he just sees him smile. It wasn't a normal smile but one of a beast smiling at its prey, as if toying with its food. I see, then let's make a deal. This got the student's attention from him turning towards his direction after stopping. A little fight perhaps, if you win you can do what you want and I won't report you to Rumi. This surprised the student who then smiles and turns to Naruto. Now you've got my attention, but if you think Katsuki smiled dies as Naruto points at him. But if I win, for the rest of your time here you will obey me without question, agreed. This surprised Katsuki, but he just smiles in response before Naruto turns around. Change out of the hero costume into your regular clothing if you got one you can fight me in. He walks in the direction of the exit. Follow me. In response, the student did so leaving Koji who was very unsure until he heard it talk amongst the animals who were watching. He's dead. The king is most likely going to toy with him. The king is most likely bored. It's been less than a month since the king made short work of that poacher. Wonder if he will bury the body by the ocean or in the ground this time. As he heard those words, Koji felt a chill run up his spine as he heard all of it, feeling the fear emanating from them as the student was given a clearer look at Naruto. Didn't expect the basement to be this big, muttered one student who stood in basically a large underground training room with weight laying on racks with the walls being protected as well. While he was stretching, he looks at the owner of the room, Naruto, who stood in the center with a smile. He wore a sleeveless tank top and shorts. Both being black with having the design of red clouds with white outlines on them. Katsuki's outfit was similar to his own, due to also wearing a sleeveless tank top and shorts. The room is big enough and can handle your explosions, Naruto began upon seeing Katsuki approach after his stretches. Just try not using too large ones or it'll become a hazard for both of us, since I've seen how big you can make. As he heard that, Katsuki just stares at Naruto who was simply relaxed. You're gonna regret thinking of this, you blonde bastard. His gaze hardens unlike Naruto's who just smiles. I'm not gonna pull any punches, like you said anything goes. As if hearing a bell ring, he extends his arms back as he unleashed his explosives from the palms to send him directly for Naruto who just stood there. As he screamed that, he was already swinging his right arm towards Naruto's direction after cutting it with the explosions in the hand, planning to send him crashing into the wall until it happened. Naruto's relaxed expression turns to disappointment and with a Katsuki in the next found himself flying back. His body hits the ground with roll, yet even so he quickly got up but found his center of balance shaken. At that moment, he felt the impact as he touched his face, and the moment he pulled it away he saw seen blood. You left yourself wide open, kid. Naruto proceeds to tap his elbow with an unimpressed expression. You were in the air while focusing your big attack on a single hand. All I did was brush the arm away and strike you in the face. His words registered to Katsuki who grits his teeth and ignored the pain and blood leaking from his nose. Shut up. With a single arm pointed behind, he unleashed a single explosion to send him up above before a second sent him down straight towards him, yet, instead of blocking he humored the student and starts backing up fast to dodge the next explosion, focused on breaking his fall as to attack Naruto, but he was already out of range while he was backing up, giving the hothead a chance as he launched himself a second time at Naruto with both arms prepared to strike. Ikatsuki's words got stuck in his throat at the man's sudden change of movement from backing up to doing a 180 as his center of gravity changed immediately as he was now charging forward towards the student who recalled the elbow and unleashed a double explosion, yet he witnessed Naruto suddenly change directions mid-dash to evade the explosion. "Stop moving." He quickly directed focus on his right arm, planning to unleash a wide-range explosion with his hand already alit, yet Naruto was faster as he got close enough and grabbed Katsuki's wrist, forcing his arm to point in the other direction, yet instead of unleashing an explosion, he followed up his attack with a kick for Naruto's face that caused him to let go as he suddenly leaned back to dodge it. Seeing this as his chance, Katsuki brought both arms forwards as they were once again alit, but in that second of release he froze. Upon meeting Naruto's gaze, he could not only see but feel the disappointment. Ikatsuki came back to reality upon seeing Naruto had grabbed Katsuki's right wrist in his moment of weakness. Disappointed. At this moment, Naruto twisted his arm in such a way he found himself on one knee before having a chop hit his neck, resulting in Katsuki's vision starting to fade as the teen was falling black, but as he stared at Naruto, his eyes widened in disbelief as he finally recalled where he had seen Naruto. That's. As he thought that, Katsuki recalled a picture frame in his parents' room. It was during the war over 100 plus years ago, which had his great-grandfather, Garu Bakugo, standing in it with his team that fought in the war as a special unit of quirk users, that team having a member looking identical to Naruto if not a little younger with red hair and blue eyes. He could no longer think on it as his vision faded and he hit the ground with some blood leaking from his mouth while his nose still bled a little, yet Naruto just stared down at him. He wasn't taught the water stream rock smashing fist. Naruto places a hand on his chin. "I fought Garu's daughter and even she gave me quite a fight, yet why wasn't he taught the style? I know his mother is alive, so why?" Naruto's eyes narrow as he didn't like the fact something prevented the student from learning the martial arts style. "Water stream rock smashing fist, my gramps gave it that pain in the ass name." A sigh escapes Naruto's mouth as he approaches the downed student and picks him up over his shoulder. Chapter 5. The Day of Celebration. Years ago during New Year's Day Shigatsu on Nabu Island. "How long has it been since I thought about love?" The blonde stood at a street corner, under a lamppost with a single light on him, while watching couples walk by him, heading towards a nearby shrine to ring the bell. It wasn't that cold despite seeing his breath along with the fact it wasn't snowing with some snow being nearby. He was dressed in a simple winter jacket and scarf once more despite not needed. Only 2 other times since over 100 years ago and a frown forms on his face. Must have been about over 30 years ago Nana. His expression remained the same, except his eyes narrowing, as he recalled the user of One for All, who he had met during one of UA's sports festivals he decided to go to. As he recalled her, he recalled the memories he wished he could forget. Hey, his eyes widen in surprise, not even realizing how close she was, and just turns his head as others passed, and that was when his eyes merely widened to find she was wearing a mixture of a kimono and a winter jacket over it. "Kimono?" was the first thing he said, causing her eyes to widen. "Why yeah," she glances away with a blush forming. "It's New Year's and also why not get dressed for the occasion, am I right?" Her words merely gained a dumbfounded expression that embarrassed her, making her feel out of place. "And my mom gave me this when I told her I was having New Year's is here." All he did was raise an eyebrow before he found himself getting shoved forwards by the girl who stood behind him, pushing him. "Oh shut up and get your ass moving." Fine. No need to push." With that, the two walked side by side towards the shrine up the steps while they spoke with other civilians walking past them, having their conversation though some passing a glance at Naruto and Rumi who were talking. "You don't seem the type to go to shrines." His question sparked an annoyed Rumi to grumble. "Why does everyone keep saying that?" "Because you're the type that would beat a villain with the actual bell." Rumi's eyes widen and put on a thinking expression, causing Naruto to sweat. "Don't." He quickly added, yet Rumi just smiles his way. "Why?" Her smile increases. "Wouldn't be a bad weapon." Yet he just shakes his head as the two stop in line now to offer their prayers. "Because that's offensive and not made to send people into comas." Yet in response, she just shrugs. "Not my fault," she simply smiles with confidence. "Villains shouldn't break the law and not expect to be punished." Her word smile caused him to look away. "You should act more your age now, you're 20 now." This got a reaction as her gaze turns into a glare. "Hey, don't expect that everyone will act the same as you, besides it's not like you need." She stops to see they had arrived in the front where the shrine bell was and was being rung. Turning she looked to see Naruto had his eyes closed with his hands together. Immediately she quickly does the same and claps her hands together to offer a prayer. Tsurumi almost sang as she gave a long "oh" while walking next to Naruto with festivities all around then that the people were enjoying. "What does your quirk do?" This got a surprise from Naruto whose eyes widen and looks at Rumi staring at him curiously. We spent so much time together and you finally ask me that. His question caused her to blush and look away in embarrassment. Hey, it's not like I cared or anything. Rather not have some awkward silence. Besides, didn't care to begin with. She glances at him with eyes that showed not wanted but needed to know, slightly confusing Naruto. Yet after all this time, I can't tell what your quirk is, only that it can affect animals and those with quirks that have animal parts. As he heard that, she points at her ears twitching as she had earmuffs for her rabbit ears on. I see, to tell you he stops abruptly and raises a hand. It's nature. As he spoke, her eyes widen as she watches a body fly down on his hand while he looks at her. It's not easy to explain, but I can take in what's called nature energy, tapping into the planet itself, nature, and turning it into energy. He raises a finger. With this, I gain multiple abilities such as my main being I can increase my power, the tails signify it, and the more I have the greater power he stops the moment he saw her eyes widen with shock, and it wasn't in an understanding way but realization, as if being hit by some kind of truth. This merely caused silence between the two as they stared at each other. Rumi, why are what she said next caused him to completely freeze, never once even expecting her to say such a thing. Kurama, that single name resulted in his eyes widening in shock as his mouth opened yet no words escaped, showing clear shock. How slowly he takes a step back while Rumi stared at him, taking in the truth. So it's true, he turns fast, about to leave before he felt a strong grip capture his wrist and turns to see she was staring at him. Let's go somewhere quieter, her words were calm along with her gaze which he just stared at her before looking away. Rumi sat in silence at a table within Naruto's house as she waited for the blonde to finish with the hot chocolate which he does, arriving with a single cup in hand that he places in front of her before he too sits down at the table. The silence was the only thing between them, both not sure what to say with Naruto more focused on one. How did you know? That question lingered in the air for a couple of seconds before she points past Naruto whose eyes widen and turns his head which he sees what it was, one of the pictures on the wall. The one that had a crack along with it, having shown a group wearing the same uniform of a camo shirt and jeans, the military photo that had a look-alike that appeared a little younger by a few years, sporting short red hair. It took me time trying to recall where I've seen that until yesterday. I saw the same picture, her words took him by surprise. It was the same one as the one at a friend's house. Her grandfather was known as Garu. As she spoke, Naruto didn't utter a word as he knew who she was talking about. How much did you piece together? I've done my research into you after realizing that photo was from over 100 years ago and that the fact you once told me it was an old military photo. Naruto looks away at his mistake. My friend also told me about the things your team did during the war. It was with this, I looked into the old videos about the war itself and the calamities that rise with it. Rumi watched as his body flinched at the last part. Despite him wearing a disguise, he had blonde spiky hair and his foxtails were the same color as yours. A deep silence came between them, Naruto visibly frowning while Rumi just stared at him. So you know the guy you started having feelings for turns out to be a 100-year-old mass-murdering monster. As he spoke that, he saw her eyes widen in surprise as her cheeks heat up and turn away. That obvious, huh? Only realized it at Ichiraku when you asked me. Back then Rumi looks up to see he had the photo in his hands, surprising her. We've killed over millions in the war to end it. We indiscriminately killed on both sides, labeling us as calamities in the process and forcing the nations to instead attack us. As he spoke, he ran a hand across the picture frame. Leave. Naruto abruptly stood up as he heads towards the wall to put it back. It's pretty obvious you are conflicted, you're trying to use your feelings you have for me to try and be blind to the truth, but don't even try. The last person in your shoes, she chooses correctly and left upon finding out the truth that I'm a monster in human flesh. After placing the photo on the wall, he looks down at his hands. To many they would look normal, but to his what he saw were his hands drenched in blood while having long, sharp nails that had flesh on them. Not to mention, during the war one lost myself and ended up killing the one person I cared for. There's no telling when I may do the same to you. You and the others lived for over 100 years. This question surprised Naruto, who turns in confusion, having expected her to leave already, yet she didn't move an inch away from where she sat, but instead just got up with her head bowed, in deep thought before looking up, meeting his gaze with determination as she slowly approached him. Alana, thinking about all you did in the past. Each step she took caused Naruto to take a step back, his eyes completely wide in disbelief. I'm not the type that would act out like this. Haven't you ever tried moving on? At this point, her words sparked a flash of memories of the choices he made and grits his teeth as her words hit the nail in his heart, resorting to anger as his only outlet to what he was feeling. Move on, move on. A tail came from his back while his features became more beast-like, glaring at Rumi. What makes you even think I can or have a right to move on? I not only killed the love of my life with my own hands, but I've massacred an untold amount of people with a foolish idea that was the best way at the time to end a war. I've done so, without a single tear, just as a monster should. Being stuck with slow aging along with my regeneration, I knew with ease the only good thing I can do to atone is watch over humanity, making sure the other calamities stay in check. Naruto looks away as he showed a complicated expression as he closed his eyes, just wanting her to leave. That's my entire reason for why I'm still here, nothing else. He froze as a hand rested on his cheek, the hand forcing his head to turn and meet her gaze to see Rumi's eyes as ones filled with sadness and fear, but not the kind that made her afraid of him. So you're using the excuse of being a 100-year-old monster, someone who's killed so many, now just a mere guardian, as a means to try to avoid finding happiness again. At this point, the expression she showed him was anger for the first time. That took him by shock. Think of this, what would you call someone that accepts you and everything you've done? At this point, his eyes could no longer widen as he just stared at her. Someone who didn't let the past decide for them, but instead the actions of the present, someone who didn't let what you did in the war change. You must be out of your mind. You can't possibly still think anything could work out with my being involved. Your feelings will only cause you pain in the end. It just can't. He jolts upon her second hand, touching his face, making him realize she had grasped his face in her hands. You did so many terrible things during the war, but even so, you standing before me is the trio, the one I've spent months with and grown to. Naruto's vision began to get a little blurry at this point as he felt his emotions rising, her words hitting a part of him he had all but not touched in over 100 years. If someone like me accepts you, then that would also make me a monster for doing such a thing, ignoring all you've done just for my happiness. I don't care, after all. I can't stop these damn feelings welling up inside me, as if they're about to burst. As she spoke, Naruto could only think about all the sins he committed as a means to stop himself from hearing her, trying to deny true happiness, but it was useless. After all, Naruto, she showed a bright smile. I love you. At that point, he finally realized it. He had tears coming out of his eyes, feeling the streaks of tears coming down his face as he was pulled in as their lips met. His eyes could only stare at her closed once. It's been over 100 years since someone told me they loved me. Slowly, for the first time in over 100 years, I let his guard down as his arms wrapped around Rumi to pull her in closer. This sight gained just shock from all the animals that watched, mostly through the window as they spied. What they felt was happiness at seeing the sight, their master for once in their lives being displayed affection and returning it. In that instant, the two heard explosions and immediately separated, startled by the sounds as they both turned to see fireworks in the distance, outside the window. Both just look at each other and laugh. Flashback end inside Nabu Island's hospital. Damn, he's strong, broken as fuck. More like the power to change the plot. Slowly a pair of eyes open, being hit by a bright light that caused him to flinch and close them until he heard his voice. Wow, Ichigo's Bankai lasted only a single page at this point. Katsuki's eyes shot open as he sat up fast to see Naruto sitting in a chair, reading manga. Bleach, finally awake? Was the question he asked while closing the book, and at this point, Katsuki had realized he was in a hospital room. You got quite the number of injuries, so I decided to take you to the hospital to get patched up. He places the book on the nightstand. You've been out since yesterday, it's the morning and the sun is already rising. His words shocked the student, who grits his teeth while looking down with Naruto staring at him passively. I take it you didn't like the ass kicking? That got a response. Turning, he glared at Naruto. Shut the hell you. He was stopped by Naruto, quickly grabbing his book and bonking him on the head. No yelling, this is a hospital, and besides, you lost the fight. Katsuki grits his teeth. Meaning you have to listen to me until you leave this island. His words caused the student to turn away. There's no way in hell I'll deal with that Satan cat anymore. His words caused Naruto to smirk while placing the book back on the stand. Understood. No, we have a question before you. Between the two pauses, the expression he displayed was more serious. That took him by surprise. Does water stream rock smashing fist ring any bells? The question floated through Katsuki's head, yet despite it being familiar, he couldn't tell where yet. Without a quick enough answer, the man looks away with a TCH sound leaving his lips. The hell was the TCH for, you bastard? Katsuki glares at Naruto. Got something to say? The fellow blonde simply sighs, scratching his head on where to begin. Her just looks at the young man with annoyance. I do have something to say. At this, Naruto points at the hero-to-be. You lack the legacy of your family. This got a response, causing his eyes to widen in actual confusion before Naruto continues once more. I'm referring to the martial art style water stream rock smashing fist. It's supposed to be your inheritance, but it seems you weren't taught the art by your mother. This caught him by surprise. What the hag? Katsuki stops as his eyes widen as he recalled something and goes into thought. Now that you mention it, I recall something about that. So the man leans forwards. Care to elaborate then, on what you recall? His words caused Katsuki to look away, still not happy about losing, yet even so he spoke. Look, I can't recall it fully, just something the hag was fighting with the old hag about on the phone. After he stops with Naruto's eyes narrowing. After the incident where you got kidnapped, correct? His words caused Katsuki to grit his teeth, yet even so he pressed on. How is your mom's relationship with your grandma, by the way? This took him by surprise, yet even so he answered. Shit, they never got along, and whenever I do see her, the hag's always with me. Upon hearing this, Naruto places a hand on his chin just as Katsuki spoke. What is this martial art style water stream rock smashing fist? His question got an answer almost immediately. It's a martial art style your great-grandfather, Gary, used during. He stops the moment he saw Katsuki's eyes widen in the same way as Rumi's did all those years ago when she figured it out. This kid. Katsuki finally placed where he recognized Naruto, recalling the memory he had before he was knocked out. His eyes merely widen as he was now on edge with Naruto staring at him before a smile breaks out. So, you finally realized it? No, it can't be, you have to be his great-grandson or something, yet the way you speak. Yes, besides the hair color and eyes, that is indeed me. At this point, he raises his legs and rests them on the bed Katsuki sat on. You just have a lot of questions to ask someone as old as me. How is that even possible? No one ever lived. He was cut off by Naruto raising a finger. This world has quirks like no other, besides I'm not the only one who's lived beyond the normal age, hell you've met one of them, recall all for one. Now that got a reaction as Katsuki recalled everything of the villain that ruined All Might's days as a hero. You knew him. The student points at him. Who are you really, one of his underlings you're trying to? He froze at this point at seeing all the amusement die in Naruto's eyes. Don't make me laugh, kid, back then Hisashi was just a member of our military squad. Unlike now, he was much more shy and nervous, basically, nothing like he is now. After saying that, Katsuki was still on edge on just who this man was, being all for one's old military squad member, being over 100 years old, to him it had to be fake, yet his eyes told a different story. Izuku Midoriya, the sudden name caused Katsuki's to enter a state of clear shock. If I'm correct, he holds one for all. Immediately he saw Katsuki jumping out of bed, entering fighting stance with his hands drawn back. How do you know that? He demands, gained an eye raise before he places a hand on his chin. It could be the fact I once had a close relationship with All Might's predecessor, Nanashimura. After all, Izuku has a distinct smell close to hers, most likely an effective one for all transfers. As he spoke that, he stared into Katsuki's eyes before he said something that pissed him off. The reason I bring him up is rather simple. I know very much that guy too have a rivalry, so what I'm about to tell you will give you the insight of someone who's been through many battles. I see. His gaze and took on that of seriousness once more. You will never truly beat Izuku as you are. Like a nail hitting its mark, Katsuki grits his teeth and small explosions appeared at his hands. The fuck did you just say, you whiskered bastard? At this point, Naruto stood up to look down on Katsuki. What I speak of is the truth, boy. Katsuki grits his teeth. In the end, you thought too highly of yourself, not realizing there is a fine gap you have no hope of conquering between you two. When Izuku masters that quirk, you will have no hope of surpassing him. At that, Katsuki glared with hate at the man who he runs towards and grabs his shirt to pull him down more toward his face. Like you would know, his eyes burned with rage. You know nothing about me. He was silenced in an instant, meeting the glowing eyes of Naruto, and with it, he finally got a look at what was before him. Felt as if he lay in the den of a massive beast, as if he were an ant looking at a giant, which reduced him to being frozen. I know everything. In the end, that explosion quirk will get you so far. Naruto taps Katsuki's chest. Look at yourself, I didn't even rely on my quirk yet. In the end, look at you, your body, in the end, is a simple human with no superhuman physical properties, unlike All Might and Izuku. Just a single full-powered strike from them would kill you with ease, so face the fact, being born with a quirk like yours doesn't make you even remotely gifted, because in the end there is the gap of physical properties, not to mention in your case there is a bigger issue. He pulled his hand away and walks towards the window to look at the sunrise. Your mother neglected your training, she never showed you the legacy left by your grandmother. Katsuki at this point didn't know what to do, be enraged at the one before him or frightened at the one before him, so he remained silent with a complicated expression that Naruto had looked back to see. From what you said, there must have been a disagreement between your mom and grandmother, something that must have caused her to not teach you the style. If you were taught it, well, let's say you would have been on a whole other level. Now, this got his attention. Katsuki was now listening more intently that Naruto took notice, something that caused him to smirk. If you were to learn the water stream rock smashing fist and master it, even I would have to tap into my actual quirk to win. He turns completely to Katsuki, who was just staring at him with wide eyes. Possessing not only a mid-range explosion quirk but also a short-range fighting style would put you on a whole other level to those that are close combat. He begins approaching Katsuki, placing a hand on his shoulder. If you want, during your stay here I can train you personally in combat to help prepare you in learning your legacy. After all, your mother cannot deny you it. After saying that, Katsuki looks down in thought as he didn't know what to say, which Naruto pulls his hand away and turns around abruptly, confusing the student. Anyways, we can talk later about that another. After all, there was something much more pressing I wanted to discuss with you about. His words got a serious expression from the student, staring intently at Naruto as he wondered what it could be. While you were asleep, you were muttering some stuff at that point. Katsuki's eyes show wide. Who's this round face? He heard a loud slam and turns to find the door was now wide open, which he just blinks before he smirks. Oh, this is gonna be fun. Chapter 6. The calm before the calamity. The amount of damage has still not been calculated along with the lives lost today. As of now, the authorities are still looking into the possible causes for this tragic. The TV was shut off by the blonde-haired man staring at the screen, thinking of the video recording that had shown a massive lightning storm forming, and with it lightning strikes that caused buildings to collapse and explosions to take place that was leading a city to chaos. In the end, he simply closed his eyes. Fools these days. As he muttered that, he leans back into his chair out his clipboard to overlook the lists of incoming shipments for the animals, food, medications, equipment, etc. Kyushu region. As he spoke again, he rests his left hand against his chin while putting down the clipboard. Is some brat attempting to become a calamity, perhaps? As he asked himself that, his gaze moves onto the window to see it was night now with the stars being visible before a knock was heard, gaining his attention to see Rumi opening the door wearing her civilian clothes. The kids are in bed. When he heard that, a smile forms on his face as he watched a pro-hero move towards him to get behind him with her arms wrapping around his neck, leaning over him. How has the hothead been? Her tone was laced with amusement. Best jeanist couldn't tame that attitude of his or his spiky hair. This got a laugh from the blonde before it turned to bothersome before he glanced at her. From what you know, how would you rate the relationship between Mitsuki and her mother? The question caught her off guard before it turned serious as she lets go, looking away. She was a horrible mother. The cold tone has caught him off guard, gaining his full attention to see she was looking away while rubbing her arm. From what Mitsuki told me, she was an obsessed and abusive bitch of a mother, caring only about the family's legacy. She didn't care for her well-being and thought anything besides training was a waste of time. If not for her pops, she would have been taken out of school and instead homeschooled. The hero moves to lean against the wall with her gaze on the ground, thinking back clearly. The moment she turned 18, she straight up disowned herself and left the family. Her head presses against the wall before looking at the ceiling. They never saw each other again until after Katsuki was born, since her dad wanted to see his newborn grandson, yet upon seeing her Naruto sighs as he got it. Let me guess, knowing Katsuki's attitude came from her, she most likely cussed her out of the hospital. A nod was given as an answer. Cussed out was an understatement. I was there and had to physically hold Mitsuki back. Damn, she was a handful, yet her expression turned more bothersome. Her mother looked hurt, yet she didn't even try to talk back, but turned around and left the busking while Mitsuki was shouting at her while crying. After that, years later, she told me she was convinced by her dad and husband to allow Katsuki to see her under the condition she was with them. They got into arguments every time. Naruto seemed to slouch more in his chair at hearing that. From how she talked, she was more of the aggressor every time she had to see her. When she brought Katsuki their way, things never got better. Even if she stopped with the abusive attitude, from what I saw and heard, even taking in a more apologetic and nervous approach, most likely after coming to realize how much of a bitch she was, it didn't change the fact she kept bringing up the fact it was her duty to teach Katsuki her legacy, the martial arts. At this point, a hand met his face. I think things have gotten this bad. I should have paid more visits and seen how things were. I could have fixed their relationship. A hand rests on his shoulder and he looks back at Rumi, who was staring down at him. It's not your fault, you can't be everywhere. Even so, her words didn't make snubbing better as he stood from his seat. Anyways, with the kids also, let's go. He was cut off as Nyan had suddenly appeared at the doorway, gaining their attention. Nyan, what is it? The doctor's kids causing a problem. At that point, the two just stare at the monster before they look at each other before sighing. So you little brat, is taunting heroes a hobby of yours? Well, demanded Katsuki, who stood at the ruins, glaring at the older sister known as Mahoro, who was frightened. Like her younger brother, she was a daughter of one of the island's doctors. She was back crawling away from the teen that was glaring at her. Your cheap tricks won't work on me because I'm not like any hero you've met before. You're looking at the next number one, the guy who'll be better than All Might was in his prime. The name's Katsuki Bakugo. His face began to scowl more and more. I'm telling you right now, kid, you picked the wrong person to mess with. Spoke up to the younger brother from behind. Please don't yell at my big sister, sir. Despite this, the kid shakes in fear just at how angry looking Katsuki looked to them. You were in on it too, weren't? Katsuki was abruptly silenced by the sudden meow being heard, causing the student to feel a chill down his spine before he turns to be met with a barrage of Arnold the cat's mid-jump that straight up attacked the student, scratching and biting the now pissed student while the two kids were dumbfounded. WTF is happening, why are you here you damn cat? His demands were answered by the sudden footsteps being heard, bringing their attention towards Naruto who stood next to Rumi. That was me. His eyes narrowed a little on the fellow blonde who had stopped resisting the cats that just hang on him, also staring at Naruto, while Rumi sighs. His gaze moves onto the siblings. You two, go with Rumi. It's way past your bedtime so she'll take you home. Not arguing with the man, they both nod knowing if he's here they caused him trouble, and quickly approach Rumi who turns her back to them as she led the way, leaving the four of them. Are you serious? Demanded the hothead who had Arnold jump off him as it combined with all its clones again, yet he didn't care for the cat. Those damn brats. In an instant, he was silenced as a fist came barreling into his face due to the other blonde having moved too fast for him to react, much to Izuku's shock as he watched his childhood friend rolling away. Packin'. Immediately Izuku turns towards the man who walks past him. Don't interfere kid. Was the only words he gave to the student of UA who was shocked yet, even so, was about to do something, crouching to ready himself until he was stopped. Don't interfere Deku. Katsuki was already getting back up, knowing he's gonna get one hell of a bruise tomorrow, yet was focused on the man standing before him. The hell was he was cut off as a single slap graced his face, becoming unresponsive as he was too shocked by what just happened and just turns to meet his cold gaze. You are a hero in training, you do not terrify children. Naruto places his hands in his pockets. I've seen more than enough of those faces already and I refuse to see more because of some child letting his anger get the better of him. His words angered the student who grits his teeth. Katsuki catches himself as he stared at the man who wasn't smiling, but with a look that told him he had to choose what he said next very carefully before gritting his teeth and looking away. This mere sight caused Naruto's lips to curl upwards. Never frighten children for heroes must inspire them, not make them fearful. A hand rests on the student. Besides, what I've told you and taught you, you also need to do is tame that personality of yours if you aim to become the #1 hero. After saying that he lets go of Katsuki whose eyes go to his feet. Can't even enjoy one night with Rumi, such a pain in the ass. Muttered the man who starts walking away while his back was being stared at by Katsuki, who looks down at his right hand to see it was shaking before he formed a fist. While this was happening, Izuku watched in great surprise as he looks between them and wondered what happened. Flashback years ago on Nabu Island, 1 week after New Year's. Great pretender asked or love. Breathes in. But a deep breath came a long sigh of the man who stood in front of a number of gravestones that lay in a graveyard in a sunny day, his gaze focused on a single gravestone that was before him. Hinata Hyuga. As he opened his mouth, he froze and closed it before his gaze meets his feet until they look away. I haven't visited in Oileu and the others I mean. His gaze moves back to the gravestone. I am sorry, after that day I've always came here to apologize for what I did to you, when in reality I should have apologized for not listening to you that day. Instead I proceeded with what was planned with Garu, Esiki, and Orochimaru. He proceeds to kneel down in front of the gravestone. For the past 100 years, I tried once to move on from you, to find love, but it didn't go well. After that I decided it was better to close off my heart rather than give love another shot, as my own punishment for the crimes I committed that day, to never move on but watch and keep the others in check until we all but left this world. His left hand turns to a fist as he takes a small intake of air. I wanted to tell you that I'm going to try to live again, and it's because of a certain hero. As he spoke, his hand starts to unclench as he spoke with a new look in his eyes. She in a way, saved me till now. A day doesn't go by, I don't think of what I did to you that day, to everyone. Even so, after all I told her my last and what she already knew of what I've done, she still accepted me and my sins. So I've decided, despite all I've done, that I'm gonna try to live again. He starts to stand up while staring down at it. I'm not sure if the others we betrayed that day would even accept what I'm saying, how I'm selfishly trying to live again instead of suffering for the rest of my life for the choices I've made. He moves his right hand to rest on the stone. Thank you Hinata for always being there when I needed you, for loving me. If not for you, who knows what worse things I could have done with the others. As he spoke, he's sliding his hand across it as he pulls away. With this life, I'm going to live again and to start to love myself as well. With that said, he had pulled his hand away while turning around. I'll be okay now. As he spoke those final words he began to walk away until he heard something, even with his sense of hearing it was barely audible. Goodbye Naruto. Instantly he turns but what he finds was nothing at all. Upon seeing the sight, a sad smile graces his lips while turning away to look ahead. He saw Rumi leaning against a tree, staring at the squirrels fighting over nuts. Sigh. Goodbye Hinata. was the last thing he said before he continues walking forwards towards the pro who was waiting for him before turning to see he was approaching. "You get everything off your chest?" He question was met with a sad smile that turns cheerful. "I think I did." As he said these words, Rumi's eyes widen and looks at him with sympathy at the sight of tears being wiped away before the two start walking away, side by side. "My mom's been asking about you, mind meeting her next month? How about this weekend?" Not sure how, but she was able to get my phone number. "Wait, what? Your mother is very persistent when it comes to your love life." As they spoke, one ended up being very shocked while the other just laughs. Chapter 7. The Power of a Calamity. In the afternoon. A pair of red eyes were glued on a casing inside the closet that held an old trench coat, black with a red cloud design on it, while next to it was a red kitsune mask with cracks on it. "Red," Nozomu muttered before his gaze focused on the mask itself. "Nozomu?" It was with that question a hand fell upon Nozomu's head which gained his attention to see his father peering over. "What have I told you? Not to go into your office by myself." "And what did you do?" "Went into your office by myself." But that small exchange came a sigh from his father, yet he smiles. "Where's your sister Tsuki?" This question caused him to look up, appearing to be in thought despite looking more sloth, yet only gets a chuckle from the man who ruffles his son's hair. "Most likely out adventuring with Rover." He kneels next to his son. "Why not go out by yourself for once?" His gaze turned to wonder. "Your sister tended to go out adventuring by herself at your age, but you prefer to stay." He stops at seeing Nozomu looking away, becoming uncomfortable. Is something the matter? He stops at seeing his son perk his head up and turn towards one direction on high alert, taking the blonde by surprise. Nozomu. He stopped at the moment, his ears having perked upon a loud explosion being heard from the harbor, and it was followed by more explosions taking place. This merely caused the look on Naruto's face to darken as he frowns with anger forming in his eyes before he stops and feels a hand grasp his own. Looking down, he saw the concerned Nozomu looking up at him. There are 4 people. In an instant his eyes shut wide, looking down at his son. "What? I don't recognize them. They don't sound or smell familiar." His words merely shocked the father that such a thing is possible. "Nozomu." He stops and stared into his son's eyes before he bends down and picks the child up in his arms. "Let's go find mommy and your sister." After saying that, his gaze moves to the door to see Nyan and Phoenix. "Let the students fight them and only interfere if their lives are truly in danger." That single order had resulted in the two left without a word for the enemies. With this, Naruto takes one last look at his old outfit before he shuts the door and moves with his son where his wife and daughter were. It didn't take Naruto long to get at his wife and hand his son over to her so they can head to the shelter before going off on his own. Despite her being a pro, the wiser move was letting him deal with the threat. As of now, he had arrived on one of the buildings, allowing him the ability to overlook the city, but more so the battle taking place below, which involved a redhead and 2 blonde students fighting some mummy man using inanimate objects as weapons. "Too many openings," muttered the man who had witnessed Katsuki being lifted in the air by the bandages of the villain before he was entirely wrapped by them. "Objects wrapped in my bandages move according to my will. I can't affect living things, but your body is covered by much that is inanimate. Your weapons, armor, clothes, they're mine to control." As the mummy spoke, he was using the student to attack the other 2, with the man simply watching in disappointment. "What do we even do?" Ijiro questions Denki, who stood at his side, both seeing many objects having been raised high into the air, wrapped by bandages, until their attention turns when something came landing behind the 2 who turns to find the man himself, Naruto standing behind them with his hands in his pockets. Clothing consisting of what looks close to his old military uniform of camo. "Who the fuck are you?" he demands the man whose gaze just focuses on him. "I'm the one in charge of the sanctuary here. If you surrender now and tell me why you here, I can assure you." He stops upon seeing the controlled Katsuki flew down right towards him, which he jumps back with the other 2 students, avoiding the crater being made from his fist. "That dude's controlling him, sir. What are we supposed to do?" Yet even when this was asked, Ijiro felt uncomfortable at the presence of Naruto, feeling things will end horribly and not for them. It was then that the bandages shut out, wrapping around him and the other 2. "Make your choice," Mummy began. "You can give yourself up and willingly become my puppet," or he froze when something flicked, a black flame suddenly consuming the bandages around him before climbing up towards the villain, who immediately severed it, watching it fall much to their shock, yet Mummy was starting to sweat from the presence he began to give off. "They admit defeat now," he shouts while Naruto just watches as more inanimate objects were wrapped in his bandages, turned into mummy-like creatures with single eyes fixated on him, like the ones already wrapped, with the front being Bakugo with his hair sticking out. "Stop," spoke the already struggling student who surprised the redhead and blonde students, unlike Naruto who just stared with a passive expression. "Screwing with me?" The wrappings expand as an explosion was unleashed that sent the two students flying back, unlike Naruto, who stood his ground and just stared while something began to appear from his tailbone. Meanwhile, the bandages burned off of Bakugo, who stood in a smoke cloud, much to the villain's shock. "Lummy bastard." He grits out. "Don't underestimate me." Despite his brave words, he had already received damage, with his right gauntlet having been destroyed. It was at this sight that he drew back his arms to prepare an attack until he froze, a cold chill running down his spine as a pair of hands snaked their way to his head. It was this sight that took the students by surprise, seeing the man had gotten behind the villain in the opening left by Bakugo and held him in a headlock. "I'll say this once," his hood tightens. "Surrender." Despite hearing that warning, a laugh escapes his lips as he made fists that caused the wrapped objects to fly towards his back. Snap. Bakugo's eyes merely widen, along with the other two, as they watched the villain's body collapse, laying on his stomach, yet the head was staring at the sky, wide-eyed. With this, the inanimate objects were released as they fall, causing smaller explosions around Naruto, yet he remained unfazed. Unlike the students, Ijiro and Denki were just horrified with Bakugo staring. Despite all the times he shouted death or kill, he had not once intended to truly kill someone, but badly hurt them. "Oh, my." Naruto just looks to see the arrival of the horrified Kyoka and Momo, who saw Naruto snap the villain's neck, and what made it worse was the fact he remained unfazed. It was at this moment both Ijiro and Momo recalled the fear they felt that day crawling back to them. "Why you killed him," the Redeed said as he watched the tail recede, and with the man's gaze fixated on him, yet he just stared back. "I am neither hero nor villain, and I already told you once." His gaze turned cold. "Those who call themselves villains that come to this island in hopes to harm will be dealt with. No matter the number, it will end in just a massacre." He looks down at the body and raises a hand in which a single black flame was lit. "Amaterasu." With that mutter, he flicks the flame on the corpse and immediately it was engulfed in flames of black. The students could say anything as they watched the man walk away without care, while Katsuki swallows before he grits his teeth and turns in the direction where the others are, not wanting to think too much about the fact Naruto has killed an unimaginable amount of people in the war, having to match the might of nuclear bombs. Naruto said nothing at all as he stared at the unconscious forms of Izuku and Katsuki. "Has been a rough day for the students." It was now nighttime with the sky covered in clouds where rain fell on the island, and due to the damage, they were evacuated to the smaller island of the two that were connected by a single path. The animals were being kept safe with the help of Nyan, Phoenix, and the animal whisperer himself, Koji, who had to stay behind so the animals didn't get riled up. Food and water are being passed out to the townspeople. His gaze turns to Rumi at the doorway. Momo has already sent out a distress signal, but so far it may take a day to get immediate help. She walks over to her husband to stand next to him with a serious expression before turning annoyed as she suddenly elbowed him. "How about you and I just deal with these shit villains by ourselves?" She makes a fist and stares at it. "If we work together we can't." She stops and shudders upon a sudden gust being blown into her ear, gaining a shiver and a blushing glare towards the smiling Naruto. "This isn't the time," whiskers. Yet even so he smiles before turning back, concerned. "From what I know, this villain has multiple quirks, which means Hisashi is involved." He crosses his arms just as Rumi also looked concerned. "I don't want you anywhere near him, so instead stay with the kids. I'll have Nyan and Phoenix deal with the other villains while I deal with the brat myself." After saying that, Rumi could see the coldness in his eyes, no matter the time that never changed while his thoughts drift. "Nozomu isn't quirkless." When he said that, Rumi's eyes shot wide and looks at her husband. "You mean?" Her words gained a nod. "As of right now they're both 7, so it's not that long past the age of 4 for the quirk to manifest, but so far it seems it may be heightened since surpassing my own in my human state." This got a shocked expression. "You mean he's that good? Does that mean when he reaches your age his senses will rival you with your tales?" A nod was given to her before looking bothered. "Might cause some issues with Tsuki, she hasn't yet manifested her own." This got a sigh from the mother, who scratches her head. "This is gonna be a pain. Tsuki always wanted a quirk, while Nozomu didn't care." The two adults just frowned until they heard a knock and looked to see Nozomu opening the door, which surprised them as they watched their son enter with the door closing behind him. "Papa." The child stops in front of his parents, who are looking down at them, yet they show him gentle expressions. "Nozomu, don't worry. We'll make sure." Naruto's words were silenced, turning to utter shock just like Rumi's, as their smiles dissolved from a single sentence. "Are you gonna kill again?" The two said nothing, just silence filled the room as they wondered how he even knew about that before realizing his quirk, yet even that didn't tell him everything. "Nozomu. Why do you kill?" His question caused the words to get stuck in his throat while his son stared up at him, his red eyes appearing to pierce through him while he started to sweat. Seeing this, Rumi stepped forward. "Sweetheart, why are you?" She stops when a hand rested on her shoulder and looked to see he had regained his composure. Nozomu, you already know that answer very well. He walks over towards Nozomu to place a hand on his hand, yet he still looked trouble. Don't give me that look, I do what I do if it means keeping you all safe. He kneels to his son's level. When you get older, you'll understand. He shakes his hand off his head and looks at Naruto tearfully. I don't want daddy to turn into a monster, again. His shout merely caused his eyes to widen momentarily as he saw the tears forming in his eyes. This mere sight caused him to look at his feet. I'm sorry Nozomu, but I can't. This caused his eyes to widen in shock before he looks away in anger as tears start to fall. He goes to pat his head, but he turns away. Instead of being hurt, he started to smile again. You remind me so much of her. This got his attention, his eyes meeting his own again. Long ago, I knew Samanish had the same kind of viewpoint when it came to killing. Even so, she joined the military along with me after high school, yet not once as a soldier did she ever kill. The others on our team thought she was stupid for doing such a thing, even some of us considering getting her relegated in me. At the time I cared too much for her and saw she would get herself killed. As he spoke, Rumi stared at her husband with a sad smile. In the end, I was convinced by one of our other teammates who spoke about her wishes, how they showed humanity. Despite being war, she didn't want to kill, and in turn, it made the rest of us feel like maybe there is another way. That was until I went against it and caused an even worse situation that caused so much death. He looks his son in the eye. I don't intend to stop how I am, for I am willing to do anything for you, your sister, and your mother. As he spoke, Nozomu was about to turn away. How about surpassing me and putting me back on my ass? This caused his son to look at his father in shock, just like Rumi. If you were to surpass me and take my place, that would mean I wouldn't need to do anything anymore instead of leaving it all up to you. A finger pokes his chest. But to surpass me is a path that won't be even remotely. His son grabs his finger, gripping it with a large of determination in his eyes. I'll do it. He shouts abruptly, his heart and gaze meeting his own. I'll get stronger so daddy doesn't have to kill, because that means daddy will be sad again. As he shouted that, Rumi's eyes widened all the way. Sad again. She looks to see the shocked expression on Naruto's face, his eyes equally wide until something started to change. This sight shocked her, as being the few times he cried as he just closed his eyes with the tears increasing, having trouble controlling himself. You, he stopped with a hand resting on his head before the crying Naruto smiles. Thank you, Nozomu. He began to ruffle his hair. I can't tell you just how grateful I am to hear those words. To finally know that after all these years I can finally give it a rest. As the tears stop, what he showed his son was a peaceful smile but tired eyes. I won't let you down. With those words he runs out of the room, leaving the two with the unconscious students. Naruto, are you? She stops to see him standing up. I have faith in my son, as you should too. He turns to looks at her with a smile. We have such great kids. Those words caused her to blush and look away, a smile forming on her face. You're damn right we do. She responds while meeting his gaze once again. Itsuma Shimano, muttered the father, who stood against a wall, arms crossed and outside the building with the storm having ended, with a bandaged Katsuki standing on his left, staring at him. Yeah, the asshole villains are after the brat with a cell quirk. As he relays this to the man, he watched him place a hand on his chin. From what you also told me, he collapsed. So if there's a limit. He turns fully to Katsuki. The Kugo, he called, which caused him to straighten. I'll give you and Midori one more chance to kick that villain's ass, so I'll stay back and watch over. If you fail there will be a penalty. A toothy grin forms on his face, causing Katsuki's eyes to narrow. Fine, but if I win? He points at Naruto. Train me even after we have to leave. This merely got a smile. Okay, but if you lose, the grin widened. I get to have a chat with round face. This got a reaction as Katsuki blushes before glaring at the man. You wanna die, you whiskered bastard. Please, shout, alert everyone to outside so they'll check what's happening. His words caused almost got another shout until a voice from behind was heard. Is everything okay? This question caused him to jolt and slowly turns to find Ichako standing behind him with Tsuyu, having been closest to the door. Mind your own damn business. Despite how hurt he was, the two girls stared at him. Did you stutter? Shut, round face. You did stutter. As this whole scene was playing out, Naruto was smiling against the wall before sighing and looking at the sky. How long has it been since I thought of placing my trust in another? The battle was on upon sunrise, with the villains being split apart into separate areas, with one such being Mina and Fumikage, that fought in a cave and was losing gradually. Oh please. The villain known as Kuruka said, her hair blades clashing with that of a shadow and steel blades, yet, even so, it wasn't enough. Mina. Fumikage could only shout as Dark Shadow headed right towards her, but even he realized it wouldn't make it, watching as the hardened and sharpened blade-like hair flew through the air towards the wide-eyed Mina, her eyes widening. It was then that something surprising got in its way, and that being one goofy-looking bird, Phoenix, who got in front of her and took on the blades that stabbed into its body, much to their shock at it moving so fast. Phoenix? Mina and Fumikage muttered in clear shock at one of the guards of the island who have arrived at the scene, but… Oh no, Mina became tearful at seeing the blood leaking from the many wounds on its body, yet it didn't even react to it, but stared at Karuka, who at this point was just smiling at the bird thing in front of her. "I am Phoenix," he suddenly declared, flapping his large wings. "Beggin' you, foul wench." The moment Karuka heard that last part, a tick mark formed on her forehead, while the two just stare in shock at what he just called the villain, just as it charges forward. He was abruptly silenced by the many hair-like blades stabbing into it, splattering blood everywhere, much to the horror of the students who watched the gruesome scene as the bird hits the ground, unmoving with Karuka approaching it and kicking it in the face. "Damn bird," she gritted out before looking up at the two. "No more games, I'm killing you too quickly." As she spoke, her hairs harden once again as she approaches the two, while Fumikage prepares himself, unlike the shaking Mina until it happened. "Ouch." It was with a new deep voice came a light from behind that caused Karuka to turn, just as came to a halt. In the seconds that followed, a trail of blood began to leak from her mouth, which she looks down to find an arm through her chest before back up again to be greeted by the sight. Before he stood a transformed phoenix, he appeared to be now a humanoid bird with its body looking like armor rather than skin and feathers. He gained an extra pair of wings, armor-like scales across his body, and a large avian eye in the center of his chest. "Why you gotta go and do that, I don't like getting serious." As he spoke those words, he pulled his left arm out of her chest to allow her corpse to fall at his feet with a puddle of blood soon to follow, yet it didn't change the fact the two were more horrified than grateful, which he noticed. "Geez, I save your lives and all I get is shocked silence," Phoenix sighs as he turns away. "Welp, best see what's happening." Todoroki was among the group of heroes in training, trying his hardest not to vomit, unlike the others who had, before them lay the corpse of Chijuro, who had his lower jaw ripped off after having the jaw forcefully widened to the point it was gory. Nyan simply sat on the corpse, happily smiling while covered in the blood of his foes. "Boring." He spoke while tossing the lower jaw repeatedly in the air, splattering more blood on him. "And I thought he would be a challenge." The cat monster just turns in the direction of multiple explosions taking place, followed by what looked like blue dragons flying through the air. Be damn it," spoke Nine, who was in an incredible amount of internal pain, clutching his chest. "Not now." Yet regardless, all the obstacles he saw had been removed, with his gaze moving towards the fearful children who were tearful, yet even so Mahoro stood in front of her brother, protectively. "Run, Katsuma," she ordered her frightened brother. "No, don't, Mahoro." His pleas were ignored by his sister, who charges forwards and stops in front of the villain, shouting and begging him to stay away from her brother. "Just stop immediately." She was silenced by the man grabbing her by the throat, lifting her on the air at his side, just as the cells in his body scream in pain, once again flinching, which the grip tightens around Mahoro's throat. Katsuma, her little brother, was shaking in fear as he watched his helpless sister held hostage. "Unless you want your sister to die right now, huff, you'll get over here," he orders through gritted teeth, much to the terror of the tearful brother. "No, run away." His sister spoke tearfully to her brother before the grip tightens to silence her. Meanwhile, the purple glowing veins increase in Nine's face painfully. "Help me turn my desire into reality." In his left hand, the kid had begun to lose consciousness before in one quick movement, he burst out into a full spirit, regardless of his own life. "Nuo. I can't just give up, I promise I will protect you, Mahoro." He screamed while Nine throws the girl away, only for a foot to slam into his face in return, courtesy of one smiling pro who sent the man flying back, while in her left arm was the younger sister being wide-eyed as she stared at the dust cloud. "Why you?" He was cut off by Rumi picking him up in her other arm. No time to chat, she ducks under a beam and starts running in the opposite direction, just as the clouds disperses to reveal the enraged Nine, staring at a retreating form before raising both arms until he felt it. "Boy." The booming voice from behind had immediately caused Nine to turn, planning on blowing whoever it was away, until he was overcome by this massive killing intent that stunned him, just as his right wrist was grabbed tightly and pulled, having an elbow slam into his chest, where multiple cracks could be heard. Nine was cut off. Even after spitting out blood, the sound of his yell was silenced as the attack didn't stop. His wrist was gripped even tighter as it was completely crushed, while he was pulled again in his moment of weakness to have a fist slam in his face, cracking his skull, while sending him flying back with the mask breaking off. "What?" He finally managed out to look, yet no one was there until he heard something from behind, only for a pair of arms to wrap around him, and with that he was brought into a devastating suplex that formed a crater at the same time, having pain course through Nine's body. Arg, once again words were silenced as the foe got up before slamming a foot in his stomach, knocking the air out of him, as that once more sent him flying, before getting his head caught and slammed into the ground. With this, Nine was just wide-eyed as he moved his gaze towards the one who held his head to find a pissed-off blonde holding him, while two foxtails were seen swishing behind him. Damn brat. At that point, he let go and stood up. This choice allowed Nine to regain his composure as he too did the same, standing up to find the man cracking his knuckles. U9 was already moving, but just as he brought back his left arm he was abruptly silenced, unlike anyone before he moved too fast, nor allowed him to finish speaking, due to a backhand fist slamming into his face, shooting out an already loose tooth from his mouth, yet it didn't stop the villain who crouched as he fired 5 beams from his left-hand fingertips due to the right, has had its wrist crushed. Yet the blonde moved too fast, dodging all of the beams with only his jacket being singed before launching himself towards the man, but his fist met a barrier. This moment had Nine already prepare his next attack until he felt something and looks down to see one of the tails wrapping around his leg, before abruptly he was pulled and thrown around like a rag doll into the earth. How? He thought after the 7th time he was thrown into the ground, which sent debris flying and Naruto just staring down at him. At this point, Rumi was watching next to the shocked Izuku and Katsuki who were watching this scene. Wait, I don't think he was told about what type of quirks he was using. Izuku muttered, his eyes widening in the realization of the level of skill this man held, while Katsuki kept his arms crossed, watching closely as the villain unleashed 2 large blue dragon-shaped monster tendrils towards the man who tore through them, spinning, while his hand seemed to give off an aura that was sent out to slash the tendrils, before he lands on his feet, charging again. Shit. Nine quickly made a larger barrier with his one hand, but became in disbelief upon Naruto suddenly shifting his center of gravity, behind human capability, as he suddenly turned right then around the barrier mid-dash, yet even so, Nine was already turning with his arm extended as he fired the beams right for the man who sidesteps at the moment right before impact, causing Nine to not understand if it hit or not as he watches Naruto closing in on him. Get away from me. As he shouted that, his one arm created an even larger barrier in front of Naruto who was heading right for it, but this time he draws back his right arm, and with it, a third tail emerges as he threw a punch that shatters the barrier, much to the shock of Nine who was nailed once more in the face and sent flying back, rolling as he comes down till he stops. It was at this point, all the students had arrived to witness the beatdown, gathering where Rumi was with the others, the kids having been handed over to Phoenix and Nine, who make their way back towards the cage where Koji was, and in turn gaining the notice from Nine who was staring at the sky to see it. No, as he spoke, Naruto was walking towards him with an angered expression. I can't lose, as he muttered that, it was then that Naruto saw the sky, a cumulonimbus cloud forming above his head much to his surprise. I can't stop now. As Nine spoke, the cumulonimbus cloud grew massively even more. I won't let it end like this, I will have my new society. No matter what it takes. And with that, Nine's body unleashed even more power, much to the annoyance of Naruto, who looked back to feel the power increase. The villain had clear energy pouring out of his back while displaying purple glowing lines that he noticed. Is he at his limit? Thought the man before his gaze focused on the empty tubes on his back, which caused his eyes to narrow before the villain spun fast, forming a vortex of wind that was followed by 2 others, before combining into one massive energy twister that took him by surprise as he grits his teeth. This isn't good. His gaze turns to the lighting crashing down around the island, more so causing few explosions upon striking the cage, much to his worry. Shit, he stops when it converged on him, having sped straight for him, which he charged and slammed his right fist, but it was useless as he was drawn into it, much to the shock and worry of the students. They watched a man being tossed in the air with shots of lighting hitting him until he saw something, which he was blasted out of it and into the ground. Damn, muttered the man who had very noticeable wounds healing already while Nine lands in front of him. Nine was glaring down upon the man who was glaring up at him, watching as he acted high and mighty. It's no use, you simply don't have enough strength to defeat me. He begins approaching the blonde who got in a fighting stance. You would not survive the new world, I will. Nine stops when he heard a snort and met a smile. Oh god, why you believe he was cut off by a beam striking his body and blowing a hole in it. Silence, you insignificant worm. The strong will lord over the weak in my utopia. Immediately a massive tendril of the blue dragon flew out from the villain and struck Naruto, who was trapped in its mouth as he flew through the air before crashing behind Nine with a large expositor of debris flying everywhere. Labels like hero and villain won't be needed. Power will be the only factor that matters. That's how a true superhuman society should be structured. At this point, Izuku was gritting his from where he stood next to Katsuki, who was also standing back reluctantly, while Miharu and Katsuma could only watch as the man they've known since they were kids was being beaten, yet the only one who watched without showing fear was Rumi, and she wasn't smiling. Asshole. The shout caused Nine to stop and towards the dust cloud, seeing the blonde was stuck between the creation's teeth and stare at him from where he lay. You must be a complete dumbass if you think that's even remotely possible and you're standing. At that point, he saw something and looks at the sky to see massive amounts of lightning focusing on one point, much to his shock. If you attempt to get in my way, he raises both hands as the lighting increases from above. Then die. With those words, a single beam like lightning was unleashed right down towards Naruto, who stared at it wide-eyed as it came down, but as it did so his gaze moves in the span between it coming down and striking to look at Rumi. What he saw was his wife, not even showing fear nor happiness, the look in her eyes told all, and that was complete faith. Heh. Despite the situation, that was the only laugh that escaped his lips as the attack hits him, and with it, a massive explosion was followed by a shockwave. Mr. Uzumaki. The student screamed in horror, while Izuku and Katsuki were just shocked as the two were about to head out the moment the attack finished, only for a pair of hands to grab their shoulders and gain their attention towards the wife who watched. Why are you stopping us? Are you blind? Their shouts did nothing but made them realize something. Rumi wasn't smiling, but stared calmly at the massive dust cloud before closing her eyes. Long ago, I accepted you, Naruto. As she muttered those words, the students were confused before she opens them again. Don't change who you are because of me, just protect this island and our family. As she spoke those words, Izuku and Katsuki felt it, all the students felt it. Izuku was now shaking, standing in front of the rest who all but collapsed to their knees as they bore witness to that of a calamity. Katsuki fell to one knee as he too felt it, true, unadulterated, malice that of which Izuku fell to his knees as he wasn't prepared for such a feeling. Rumi was the only one who stood, despite her knees also buckling from the intense aura before looking back at the terrified students. This is what it means to be in the presence of a calamity who no longer playing around. As she muttered that, she watched her husband for the first time having entered that form before her presence. Nine just stood there, feet glued to the earth as he couldn't comprehend the feeling behind him, but the simple fact the words he spouted out now felt pointless. What Nine could only turn around slowly with completely wide eyes filled with fear, for what he saw was the image of a massive nine-tailed fox. At this point, something was shot up high into the air, drawing his and everyone's attention, who caught the glimpse of a wide orb of light that was sent towards the sky, before being blinded by a single detonation of such magnitude, it caused a shockwave all over the island, with the students bending down on high alert. All were given witness to a massive orb-like explosion that blew all the clouds away, revealing a sunny day. He was silenced by the sound of clear heavy footsteps from the large smoke cloud before him still steaming. Each step echoed as it got closer and closer, each step resulted in Nine's fear increasing, each step gave way to something that can only be labeled as a calamity. Upon the figure walking out of the smoke, his appearance for all to see, and it was with this he came to realize his mistake. Dear God, no way, there can only be one explanation, was all Nine could mutter in terror, for what lay before him was a transformed Naruto, finally realizing he was in the presence of one of the monsters that matched nation's military might in the war 100 years ago. The man had truly taken on a different form, his hair had grown to the point the back of his hair reaches his waist, the markings on his face had become thicker to resemble the trigram, his pupil to his already red eyes now is another slit in the center, horizontal to it, and forming a plus. His canines had grown to show 4 gangs protruding from his mouth. Been a while since I took this form. Several cracks were heard as he stretches, the clothing he bore was changed, as with his destroyed doctor coat, now taking a different form, as it was replaced by a dark red, nearly black layer of aura, in the shape of a full-length haori, that had the sleeves stop at his elbow, red veins running across his arms as his fingernails turned to claws. The most notable detail wasn't the fact he now had 6 tails, but on his back was the skeleton of a 6-tailed fox, the head laying on his right shoulder while the body on his back and the tails upon each of his tails. With this form, the grass grew and any plant life grew as well near him. Despite his maliciousness, it brought nature energy. In a single movement, he was already in front of Nine, who couldn't even see him move, appearing as if he were a red flash. What you've done calls for punishment, and you do realize what that means. He was silenced, not by a punch, kick, or slash, but a single brutal swing of a tail that blew off his head, splattering blood everywhere with his gray matter, bone, and the piece of an eye. This scene gained shock from the students who watched him end that man in just a tail swing. All Naruto did was look down in disappointment as the corpse fell in its increasing puddle of blood. "Tch" was the only sound he made while his body gave off steam, returning to normal with the tails receding before he looks back at his wife and students, showing a thumbs up at the group. "Sigh, well that was something," muttered the man who finally sat his ass down on a couple of boulders, watching as the helicopters came with pros, helping the injured heroes, and looking over the damage which Naruto had front row seats to, watching as military personnel was helping the injured students to the hospitals, thanks to the help of doctors and surgeons that were brought along. Naruto's gaze moves down to the pro-hero Hawks who was staring up at him, the two locking gazes before the pro broke it and moves onto the students. It was then he froze as he smelled something and his ears twitched due to the fact he just entered his stronger form, his senses were still very fresh, and with it, he could smell someone after hearing a particular sound coming from the field of flowers on the main island. Malice smells like Nana yet his eyes widened all the way, abruptly standing up and about to activate his tails till he flinched, having the side effects kick in from going 3 to 6 tails immediately, rather than one by one, but it didn't matter in the end, as that smell had disappeared after he heard that sound again, which he could only presume was teleportation. Nana as he muttered that, his left hand turned into a fist. "Thank you for your hospitality, sir." Tenya shouted, giving a bow to the man in charge who stood next to his wife and the 4 kids, his and the one saved by Izuku and Katsuki. "We appreciate everything you did for us during our stay in your care." Naruto merely smiles as he looks over the students of Class 1A, despite everything the students still appeared uncomfortable in his presence which he took note of and frowns. "I have something to say before you depart." He turns to look at Rumi and gave her a look which she understood and lead the children away as they gave their goodbyes, leaving him with the students. "You all know who I am and my story." He looks back at them to see their faces. Back then, it was a time of ruin, despair, death. There was no room for heroes but only soldiers. We had to make the choices no one else could. Me and a few others in my unit found a choice lying before us, and to take that choice, we turned against our own for what we believed in. You could also say we blinded ourselves, focusing on the fastest way to end the war, rather than what could truly work. Naruto stared at each of the students, one by one. "Among everything I told you, remember what I say next and take it to heart from someone who's walked that path of death. And that is, be better than me, be a hero and not a soldier." With that said, he shows a smile to help them relax. "After all, each one of you can be a great heroes." With those parting words, he watched as each student, one by one walked up the ramp of the ship till Katsuki was left to meet his gaze. "You lost." "Shut it." At this point, Katsuki was looking embarrassed with his eyes meeting his feet. "In order for me to help train you, I'll swing by your house this week to talk to your mother to convince her to train you." Immediately his eyes widen and look up. "You can come to my island during the weekends for training sessions. But for you to learn your legacy at a much faster rate, you wouldn't be able to attend your classes anymore in person." This caused his eyes to widen in shock. Katsuki stops and thinks with a frown which Naruto smiles before looking back to see his family waiting and signals them to come back over with the 2 other kids as well. "Just think about it, you can still train with your mother and do classes, but if you want to reach a far greater level in a shorter amount of time, then my offer is the best." After saying that, he watches Katsuki walking up the steps where the others were standing, and the distance they were the students couldn't hear what was said. "Oh yes, Ochako." Naruto suddenly called, causing Katsuki's eyes to bulge as he recalls the bet and turns fast towards the man. "You trained under Gunhead, right?" This caused her eyes to widen in surprise. "How do you know about that?" "I read your file, he's a martial artist so that got me thinking. If you want to get stronger in hand-to-hand, I can set up a training schedule for you to come to this island during weekends to learn under me." As he said that, Katsuki was shocked before looking at Ochako who was unsure. "You won't be the only one." A devilish grin takes form. "Katsuki is already going to be training with me every weekend starting now, so having you two also train against each other would work out as well." As he finished speaking, Ochako puts on a thoughtful expression while Katsuki turns to Naruto in anger with a blush at the man who was smiling at him devilishly. The students didn't understand what exactly was going on by much, but a few did, one being Mina who was the first to realize what was happening but didn't bother to say anything at all. "I'll think about it. Is there a way to contact you? I don't like giving out my private phone number, so just use Katsuki's phone to call me." With that said, she looks at Katsuki who was avoiding her gaze at being dragged into such a situation by the man. In the end, the ship began to depart with the family standing as they watched the ship leaving, while the 2 kids that were saved by the heroes in training were running along the dock to say their goodbyes. Rumi couldn't help but look at Naruto, who watched as they left, but instead of a smile, it was replaced with a deep frown. There might have been a high chance she was pregnant with our child. Rumi could only stare at her husband, knowing he's chosen that whether or not if it's true. Though, as of now he'll have to research Nana to know if she had a child and what happened after. At this point, he felt something and turns to see Rumi leaning into him, which surprised him before he smiles before holding her close yet even so he still thought. "If he's a danger to my family, regardless if he's my son or grandson, I'll kill him myself." Chapter 8. Second arc begins. Few days after the events on Nabu Island. Nothing was said as one blonde-haired man stood, staring at a new house being constructed finally, after what had happened to the previous one years ago. He stood on the sidewalk, seeing the machinery unmanned, showing they were off for the day. We must not have a repeat of what happened in Dika City. As he heard this, he glances at his phone that was on the news involving what happened a couple of weeks ago that took place before Nine's attack. It's been 9 days since that fateful incident when a riot of only 20 people destroyed the city in less than an hour. To blame, villains hoping to lower the public's view on heroes through destruction and the loss of innocent life. It's foolish to blame Hero for what happened in Dika City, in my opinion, the whole system needs to be reformed. Don't hate all the heroes for doing their best, it's not like they have office gigs. At this moment, he turns off his phone. It's becoming obvious that society is reaching its breaking point as it did over 100 years ago. A hand runs through his hair. Whatever Shigaraki is planning, it would be better we just remove him entirely. That's why I want your support. And he was cut off by a calm tone. Denied. This immediately caused Naruto to frown as he looks at the man who had his eyes closed before opening them to reveal large black eyes. We all agreed over 50 years ago we would begin to search for our successors. Don't forget, All for One isn't a calamity like us. He can't do anything against you or he will die, and you still must abide by the rules. That means not getting involved in whatever he does unless it impacts you and not you seeking altercation. His gaze moves onto Naruto from the house. As the rules dictate over 100 years ago, we four can no longer get involved after the sins we've made during the war, but help society in ways that don't reveal who we are. It was decided we would stay on guard and prepare in case that thing makes its return to our dimension. His words just caused Naruto to grit his teeth and turn to him. Is he Gaijin? He corrects himself upon seeing his gaze harden. As the rules dictate, this involves me. Like the attack on the island, I can get involved since my grandson is being brought into this, not to mention whatever. He stops yet again when he saw the dissatisfied look on his face. It doesn't matter, he was not under your protection at all and was taken in by All for One. He starts turning away. Unless All for One openly tries to attack you or he tries something against your wife or kids, you cannot interfere with his business. Don't forget, we know some of the things you've done such as getting involved with UA, wanting to take on students. The only reason you can do it is because it's not directly impacting this era and because we allow it. Geru doesn't mind at all you tutoring his descendant. Naruto could only grit his teeth as he was gone, leaving him by himself, which he just looks at the house before down at a photo, a picture of Nana Shimura, who was hugging a child smiling cheerfully. If only she told May would have been able to prevent the misfortune from falling on this family. As he mutters that to himself, he pockets the photo before his gaze moves towards the sky, seeing snowfall has begun yet his phone vibrates, gaining his attention as he takes it out. I've prepared as you've asked, the work studies program will allow those 2 students to work under you on Nabu Island. Upon reading it, he sighs in realization of what he should next do. The day seems like the best time to get Bakugo and bring him with me to see his mother before Christmas tomorrow. He places a hand on his chin, knowing this clone was given a certain amount of energy before it would end. I said no. Bakugo all but shouted at the lovable pink Ishido, who's been trying to sneak Santa clothing on the hothead. What, I'm just chilling here. Yet that was not even believable. You going back to Genist, Bakugo? His question gained his annoyed glare just as Kaminari threw a hat on him quickly, yet instead of anger he stopped, recalling the hero was still missing. Bakugo is already going to be training with me every weekend starting now, so having you 2 also train against each other would work out as well. Recalling the man's words, he frowns as he hasn't decided on leaving school to become his full-time student or just train weekends there. The internship only will put an issue on that. It was at this point they heard loud knocking at the door, gaining the students of Class 1A's attention, with Uraraka being the one to walk towards the door and open it, which her eyes widen in surprise. Yo. Spoke the smiling Naruto, who stood at the door, giving a wave to the surprised class as the door fully opens with Naruto entering, past Uraraka. If you want to get stronger hand to hand, I can set up a training schedule for you to come to this island during weekends to learn under me. The student stares at Naruto's back, at the Calamity's back, who offered to train her in combat, while one speedster immediately spoke after getting in front of him. Mr. Uzumaki. Tenya said or rather shouted as he abruptly got to him, other students equally shocked at seeing the man in front of them having come to their school after the incident at Nabu Island. I would have been home, but today was the closest day I could schedule a meeting in the city with an old friend, though I would drop by and grab Bakugo. This caused the student's eyes to widen, with them looking at the hothead himself, who seemed surprised. You need Bakugo for something? Kirishima questions the man, who simply nods. Yes, I need to grab him for a little while, for it involves the upcoming work studies with me. He glances at Uraraka and smiles, causing her eyes to widen as she too remembers, while the hothead was shocked at the fact he can do the work studies with Naruto, before recalling he knew the principal. In the end, he just walks over to him with an annoyed expression. Let's just get this over with. Naruto just smirks before he noticed Izuku walking up to him. Excuse me, Mr. Uzumaki, he was cut off by Naruto raising a hand. The answer is no, this caught him and many others by surprise with Bakugo's eyes widening as well. I won't take you on for the upcoming work studies, I never had any intention to, since you just don't interest me along with personal reasons. This caught them all by surprise, with Kaminari muttering harsh with Uraraka being surprised she caught him interest. Besides, it's best you just train with all might. His gaze held an answer to his own thoughts, the fact he knew more about One for All yet, instead of talking more about that, the man brought out his phone. Also, mind explaining this? His question immediately got a reaction as a number of students turned away, trying not to laugh, while Bakugo's eye twitches at seeing a certain interview playing, which that included him and Todoroki, yet the hothead was cut out, instead only showing glimpses of himself looking pissed off before Shiro and Kaminari started to laugh again, with Bakugo just gritting his teeth, still salty about that. You got to get a handle on that anger of yours. The student glared at the man who puts his phone away, while Ishido sneaks up on the student. You touch me and you die. Oh come on, it's Christmas. It was at this point the door opens abruptly gaining everyone's attention. You started the party already? Came the question of the teacher of class 1A as Awa, who was taken aback by the sight of Naruto giving him a wave. Need to borrow one of your students in a little. He stops talking when he notices another entering, a child with pale blue-gray hair wearing a Santa outfit, looking happy yet Naruto just stares at her. I'm supposed to say she looks at the teacher. Trick or treat. Her question got an immediate response from the man who kneels, correcting her. Eerie claws. One by one, Naruto noticed students approach the girl happily at how cute she looked at being a little Santa. In sickness and in health. She proceeds to throw glitter with Naruto raising an eyebrow. No, you're even further away. Is Toga coming? That guy's a riot. Kirishima questioned their teacher, yet was only told he had his class to celebrate with. Enjoy yourself, as always smiles at the kid. Go on. With that said, she approaches Uraraka with Naruto just backing away, but hears everything, despite being a clone he possessed all the Og senses. Her horn's gotten bigger. Yeah, her attitude has remained positive. She's taking what you said to heart. Naruto just glances at Izuku who looked overjoyed at seeing the child enjoying herself. Wonder what I missed. As he thought that, his gaze turns to Izawa who approached him and stood on his right while the students enjoyed themselves, Naruto mouthing to Bakugo the time he had before they visited his parents, and soon enough it was a full-blown party again with the students. As he watched, he could see the noticeable attraction between Uraraka and Izuku before his gaze moves onto Bakugo, who was glancing at the two before looking away in great annoyance at Mina, once again throwing a Santa hat on his head. Stop that. Oh lighten up already. The blonde couldn't help but smile at this scene, what it was like in high school. Hello when he heard that, he turned his gaze down to the child who was looking up at him before extending a candy cane. Merry Christmas. The moment he heard that his eyes widen in surprise before a gentle smile formed on his face and kneels to take the cane. Merry Christmas, he places a hand atop her head. Eerie. She just blinks in surprise and smiles at the man who stands back up. You forgetting anything? The clone questions the student who got done putting on the jacket since it started to snow. Let's just get this over with. He told the calamity who just smiles as he begins opening up the door before he heard his name being called. Mr. Uzumaki this got his attention with the hothead, both turning to see Uraraka standing behind them with a smile gone, putting on an expression that wanted answers. I thought it over and before I give my answer, why do you want to train me? This caused Bakugo's eyes to widen, realizing it's most likely because of him, yet he came to a new realization upon seeing the expression the man next to him had turned to regret. To put it simply, your great-grandmother was a part of my unit in the past. At that point, her eyes shot wide and watched as he avoided her gaze, seeing the emotion his eyes now held. Back then, it was a time of ruin, despair, death. There was no room for heroes but only soldiers. We had to make the choices no one else could. Me and a few others in my unit found a choice lying before us, and to take that choice, we turned against our own for what we believed in. She stops and looks back at the others smiling and laughing, then at Izuku who caught her gaze before she turns away and meets his eyes. Would like to take your offer, I want to do my work studies on Nabu Island. This caused Bakugo's eyes to widen with Naruto doing the same, yet he just stares into her eyes, the gaze of someone seeking strength, yet she didn't know she looked like a mirror image with her great-grandmother, just having shorter hair and a darker shade of brown hair. I see, I'll call the school to let them know as well as I would need to inform your parents. But be prepared, my training won't be easy, and we won't just be working on combat, but also your quirk. The last part had surprised her and watched as he turns his back to her, walking out with Bakugo following behind. So the student began. What did you guys do to your old unit, the ones you turned against? His question met no answer as all he saw was the back of the man's head until he finally came to a stop and stared at the night sky, the snow starting to fall. "We killed them." Bakugo's eyes widen and words got stuck in his throat as Naruto turned back, his eyes glowing red. "I killed the woman I loved who tried to stop me after I took a particular serum after that, the others went on the attack to stop us, yet we didn't have time. So the others killed them. Gaara was best friends with Uraraka's great-grandmother and he was the one to kill her." As he spoke, Bakugo's eyes widen while the man stares at the sky. Flashback, over 100 years ago. I'm Private Shigaraki. A man all but shouted, he possessed short white hair and luminous red eyes that lay behind glasses. He was dressed in military clothing of a private and stood in front of a large tent within a military base, yet as seconds turn to minutes, the man starts to sweat until he jolts from something flying by him, freezing as a loud crash was heard, and he turns slowly to be met with the sight of a man laying on a destroyed wooden table that came flying out with the man. Slowly, the downed man looks up with a shit-eating grin to display his long silver hair that spikes upward in two large prongs, looking like a V with his yellow eyes fixated on another. "Nice one. Damn it Garu, why you gotta do that to my ramen, he was innocent." Shigaraki just turns now sweating to find a guy, appearing to be a few years older than him, holding a broken cup in one hand. What he took notice of was that both men were dressed in a camo shirt and jeans with the new guy sporting short red hair and ocean blue eyes with slotted pupils. Now he stops with his gaze meeting Shigaraki. "Who the fuck are you?" His question seems to cause his eyes to widen. "Be Private Shigaraki." He answers immediately. "The higher-ups have assigned me to your unit." His question gained a surprising look on his face, just as the other guy did as he stood up and walked over to Naruto, leaning to him. "When was it decided we get fresh meat?" He never got that answer as a slap upside Naruto and Garu's head came, gaining an ow from them, both as the two turns to find others behind them, exiting the tent led by one tall man who stood taller than Naruto, possessing a more muscular build than Naruto and Garu. He possessed spiky black hair with gray at the sides and a slight beard. His eyes were concealed, but the shades he wore and has a scar running across his face between his eyes. "So you're the recruit," he sported a smile in front of the others behind him. "I am Masashi, but I prefer you to call me by my codename even off missions." Blast he points at Naruto and Garu who were looking at him, still annoyed by the hard slap. The redhead's Naruto, codename Kurama and the other is Garu, codename Hunter. Blast just smiles as he extends a hand towards the others, yet their appearances varied with one being a literal robot. Shikamaru codename Shadow. A yawn was gained by the pineapple-haired man who didn't care. Kagami codename Red Eyes. The man with 3 tomos in his red eyes gave a wave with a friendly wave. Biori codename Burden. Spoke to a smiling, round-faced girl who stood with her arms crossed with long brown hair at her shoulders. Drive codename Drive. That merely got a sweat drop from the private as the lack of emotion with its single red eye glowing in response. Anata codename Clear. She gives him a gentle smile, surprising the private as he watched her walk past him to join Naruto's side, which he just smiles. Orochimaru codename Snake. It was with that introduction from Blast again that the group realized that Snake was not among them, causing the leader to sigh as he pinched the bridge of his nose. "Why does he always do that?" mutters the oldest. "Can't he just stick around instead of doing who knows what with the government?" It was after saying that they heard footsteps and turned to find an annoyed and very pale-skinned man being held by the back of his shirt, courtesy of a calm-looking man. "Thank you, Asiki." He turns to Shigaraki. The pale-skinned man is Orochimaru. His words just gained an annoyed look from the man who had shoulder-length black hair, golden eyes with slitted pupils, purple markings around his eyes, and fang-like teeth. His gaze seemed to pierce through Shigaraki, yet the leader paid it no mind. Introducing the last one, Asiki codename Jaijin. A single nod was given as Blast looks at Shigaraki. "Welcome to your first day a part of the military unit. Lamagatoki." Blast smiles brightly at Shigaraki who looks surprised but smiles at the group. I'm Private Hisashi Shigaraki." The man introduced himself as the memory all but fades. "At the prison known as Tartarus." It was at this point Afo began to stir and if he could, he would have opened his eyes. Slowly he starts to smile which caused all the guns on the walls to point at him. "Relax, I'm just having nostalgia from a dream." He looks up at the ceiling. Recalling the past when I was considered normal as he spoke, the memory of the team was changed to that of a bloody memory of 4 individuals walking in front of him, transformed into beasts, into calamities that were about to enter a war. Chapter 9. Naruto and Katsuki had finally arrived outside a large home, having taken a cab that was now driving away and leaving the two by themselves. Naruto looked around to see the snowfall had gotten a little heavier since they left UA for Katsuki's home. The two approach the home, getting out of the snowfall to stand in front of the door. Katsuki knocks on the door, gaining silence until soon after footsteps could be heard before the door finally opened. From the doorway appeared Katsuki's mother, Mitsuki Bakugo, granddaughter of Geru. "Katsuki, you're home," she stopped upon seeing a man standing behind her son, and upon his face being seen she just stared in shock. "Ermi's husband?" Clear confusion was on her face as he nodded and showed a smile. "We haven't officially met since the wedding. It's nice meeting you again, Mrs. Bakugo." He raises a hand and starts ruffling the now annoyed Katsuki's hair. "May I come inside? There is something I wish to speak to you about. By the way, is your husband home? I would like to speak to both parents." The last part seemed to have confused her, yet she looks at her son who brushed off his hand and looked towards his mother just as his father arrived at the door. "Honey, who is Mr. Uzumaki?" As the man said it, he was confused why Naruto had appeared with their son, yet in the end he was let in, finding himself sitting before the family of three. "So what is it you wish to talk to us about?" As she asked him that, he could see her gaze had a lot more to it, as if wanting a clear answer why he was here of all people. "As you know, Katsuki here came to the island I work at recently with his class, and I can guess you know he likes to act out a lot." At this point, he found the mother slapping Katsuki in the back of her head, hard. "Again, Katsuki. You hag. Please, you two, we have a guest." As the three turned into an argument, he just stared at them. "I'm here to ask for your permission to allow Katsuki to come to Nabu Island every weekend to train with me." This caught the parents by surprise. "Wait, but why our son?" It was the father, Masaru, who asked the man this, who smiles. "Besides the attitude that needs work." He receives a glare from Katsuki, who said nothing, otherwise he would get another slap. "He has potential, and I'm not referring to his quirk, but it involves the second reason I came." This confused the two adults at what he was referring to. "Why haven't you taught your son his legacy?" The moment he brought that up, Mitsuki stopped with her eyes slowly widening along with her husband, this having taken Katsuki by surprise, yet more so at the fact to see her getting angry. "So, it's true." A nod was given, while Naruto crossed a leg and placed his arm on the end of the couch for support. "This isn't about me or my past, it's about your son's." He was cut off almost immediately. "Please leave." Mitsuki stood up and pointed at the door. "I've heard this so many damn times from my mother, and I refuse to hear it from you. I refuse to teach my son anything." She was cut off by Naruto. "Even if it could very well save his life one day?" That question caused her eyes to widen. "No matter what happened, this has nothing to do with your relationship with your mother. This is about the best way you can help your son." His words were silenced by a hand slamming her table. "Enough." His gaze meets her glare. "I'm not getting in another conversation." She was silenced by another intervening. "Mom." That shout got her to stop and look at Katsuki, who was looking at her with a strong gaze, yet she breaks that gaze with a reluctant look. "The answer is no." She starts turning away before Katsuki stood. "Then I'll go to grandmother." This got a reaction as she turns fast and slapped Katsuki across the face, much to the shock of her husband and Naruto, who just stared at her. "The answer is no, I won't let you go through the same hell I went through." Mitsuki turns completely to face her son. "You are already gifted as is with your quirk, so you don't need." She was silenced by her son, who finally shouted back. "I do." Katsuki shouted, much to her mother's shock, but more so at the look in his eyes. "I need to get stronger. This quirk won't be enough to make sure it never happens again." At that point, Naruto was intrigued by his words, with his mother was surprised. "Becoming nothing but a Hostage, having to be saved by other people and not able to protect. All because I wasn't strong enough." At that point, Mitsuki's eyes widened as she stared at her son's eyes, the clear pain behind them. The part she has rarely seen from her son ever since he was born is the struggle. Slowly she took a seat next to her husband. "Why my son?" She looks up at him, their eyes locking. "Don't tell me it's just because of his potential." As she asked him that, he stared at her before he looks up at the student, who was surprised at what was happening before he smiles, gaining Katsuki's attention. "Because he reminds me of Geru, but in a different way. Like a path not yet set, unlike his great-grandfather. I honestly believe with the right guidance and teachings, he could very well surpass even All Might and arrive in a league of his own." Mitsuki, Masaru, and Katsuki stare in shock at what he said. "That is why he needs to learn his legacy, Geru's fighting style, which I consider the greatest style on the planet. Even now I have not once won against him because of it." After he said that, he stood up and turns towards the door. "Just think about it, no matter what you think of your mother, this has nothing to do with her remotely." Mitsuki frowns. "This is his choice and how he wants to live his life. Thank you for your time, I'll see myself out." He starts walking towards the door with Mitsuki in thought, while the man opens the door and turns to see Katsuki walking towards him as he steps out. "Let me know if she agrees to me teaching you and her teaching you." He turns away but was stopped. What's he doing now? That question caused Naruto to frown as he looked toward the sky. I honestly don't know, he left your family after your great-grandmother was pregnant, as well as never visited them, just left his fighting style. Never bothered to take on a student or anything, even the times I do see him his goal is still just a mystery. He turns back to look at Katsuki, their eyes locking. Be prepared because it's not gonna be easy. Naruto turns fully towards him. This style isn't simple at all, it requires you to understand your own body, to understand your opponent just by contact, and with that the understanding of torrential and undulating forces. He proceeded to throw a few fists for example. It is neither offense nor defense, it is essentially the perfect blend of both, depending on how you wield it. To repel all attacks or redirect them with twice the power. He turns away from him with the student just staring with wide eyes. But Nai. He stops as his eyes widen, but he breathes out before puffing much to the shock of the young man to see he was gone, leaving the student by himself, yet he just looks down at his right hand and makes a fist as he recalled the fight of All Might vs. All for One and Naruto vs. 9 where it was beyond anything he's seen before, but as this was happening a lone figure stood atop Katsuki's house, staring down at him. The figure wore no warm clothing, he was dressed in shorts, along with a colorful Hawaiian shirt that was open to reveal his scars, yet his muscular build, yet what would draw attention was long silver hair that was spiked upward in two large prongs, and his glowing yellow eyes. The figure soon enough smiles just as Katsuki turns to return to his house, yet he stops and looks up, seeing snow falling from his house. Naruto's eyes widen a little yet they relax as he leans back more in the chair, his gaze turning towards Nozomu who slept on one side of the room then Atsuki on the other side. Quietly he stood up from the chair he sat in and walked towards the bookshelf he placed on it before walking towards the door, shutting it quietly behind him. Is your clone still in the meeting? That question got his attention with his gaze meeting Rumi's who was dressed in her nightgown that is what she wore underneath. Yes, he starts walking down the hallway with her following after him. I think I was able to get through to her, but I'm not sure yet, gotta wait to hear from Katsuki though. He stops to see the Christmas tree with presents yet to be laid out by a certain cat whose will be sneaking into the homes of families to deliver the presents. His gaze moves towards the cookies and his eyes momentarily widen to see they were shaped as class 1A, which he picked up the one that looked like Izuku. He wanted you to train him, didn't he? The hero crossed her arms, having her all-knowing smile which Naruto chuckles and pops the cookie in his mouth while turning and munching on it. Yup, swallow he did. The man took a seat on the couch with Rumi proceeding to sit on his lap, cuddling into the man with her fingers going through his messy hair. How was the talk with him? At this point, Naruto's eyes narrowed and ran a hand through his hair. Isiki is more of an issue, he won't let me do anything even if Tenko is my grandson, unless it involves me. Hearing that, she just hugs his head into her chest. Not everything will go your way, all you can do now is help cultivate the next generation. When he heard that, his eyes momentarily widened before they closed and opened again with a relaxed gaze, his eyes staring at the ceiling in silence, recalling the mission that changed everything. Flashback over 120 plus years ago. So let me get this straight. A younger Naruto sat before his commander, Musashi known as Blast, had his arms crossed and was not happy either. They want the Magatoki unit to infiltrate enemy territory on the island of Nabu, most notably Mount Shiroyama without you leading us for you have another mission. The man nods in agreement. Yes, they wouldn't listen and need the unit to move out by the end of today. There have been reports that the experiments running there have the goal to create the ultimate drug that can transform a normal quirk into a decider in the war. The order is you and the others are to infiltrate the island's laboratory and gather all intel on their experiments and the results they've required. This also includes taking in the scientists. This got Naruto to frown. The higher-ups hope to duplicate the results from what they have gathered so far to counter enemy forces in case they have already started mass-producing this drug. As he heard that, Naruto looks away with a tch. This war has lasted for over 5 years, if the intel is true, this will only make things worse for both sides if they do this. The man before Naruto leans back in his chair. I don't disagree, but orders are orders and I'm leaving you in charge. I have been ordered to infiltrate another location, it involves some top-secret project known as the Cube, so everything will be under your control while I deal with my end. Naruto just nods while the man stood up and starts walking towards the opening of their large tent, yet stops at Naruto's side and places a hand on his shoulder. Don't worry, this war won't last forever. We may be on the edge of ending this war and finally having peace, that way we can finally mourn the death of those we lost. As he spoke, he starts walking away while Naruto just sat there frowning before his ears twitch and glances at the flap of the tent to see a snake entering which causes his eyes to narrow. What do you want? As he asked that, the snake hisses at him. The war that won't end until one side is destroyed. Slowly, the man's eyes narrowed at the snake that was staring at him. I'm not in the mood. The snake just hiss, causing his eyes to widen and turns towards it. What would you say? There is a way to end this war and cause the other nations to form an alliance immediately. Naruto stares at the snake as it stares back. If I had not listened to Orochimaru and that forked tongue of his, perhaps things would have not gone so far with the war. What if post-war Naruto was in My Hero Academia end here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.